My sister tried to reunite me with my ex for years, even ambushing me while pregnant. I cut ties for my family's safety. I began dating my brother's best buddy when I was 16. We were dating until I graduated high school, and when he proposed, I turned it down. There was a lot of drama, with my family urging me to reconsider because we may have a lengthy engagement or reunite later. My connection with my brother, 36, was strained for a while, but the one with my sister, 32, never recovered. She was sure that my ex was the best person for me, and it got terrible when she began dating my ex's brother. My siblings invited my ex everywhere, even family gatherings. I remained silent because he was also their buddy, but things got out of hand when my sister insisted on us reconciling. She tried everything, from setting up blind dates to forcing us to share a room over the holidays. Regardless of the event, my ex was always invited. I eventually had enough and asked my parents to intervene. They were honest with my siblings and stopped inviting my ex so frequently. My sister, unlike my brother, did not back down. It all came to a head when I met my spouse on a semester abroad. He was from a different university but the same country, and we simply clicked. It was beautiful, and we got engaged after a year together. Except for my sister, the rest of my family was pleased for me. She kept telling me that I was in the honeymoon phase and would grow out of it. Despite numerous confrontations and attempts to reunite with my ex, I warned her that if she did anything else, I would cut her off totally. My sister made me maid of honor for her wedding and planned for me to spend all of my time with the bridal party, which included my ex. She even set up one of her friends as my husband's date. We only learned this at the reception, when the unfortunate girl attempted to make a pass at my husband. My sister said that was fine because we weren't married yet and could explore things with other people. I left the party. The next day, I told my parents and brother that, while I wouldn't force them to pick, I would not speak to my sister again. If they attempted to mend our relationship, I would also cut off communication with them. My father and brother backed my decision, but my mother was upset and attempted to compromise. She stopped after 2 attempts. I have not spoken with my sister in 6 years. She's tried everything, from gifts to tantrums, but I refuse to participate. At family gatherings, I pretend she doesn't exist. Initially, she made sarcastic remarks or attempted to generate drama, but since no one supported her, she quit up. She had a meltdown when she realized she had been invited to my wedding but would not be participating in any preparations. My brother has expressed regret for putting up with her antics for so long, and his relationship with my ex has deteriorated. They still talk, but they're not as close as before. My mother's birthday was a few weeks ago, and I finally confirmed that we are expecting our first child. This is not the first grandchild, but it is the first granddaughter. Everyone was delighted, except my sister. My mother noticed her reaction and invited me around for tea a few days later. My instincts told me not to go, but I wanted to be positive. The first thing I saw when I arrived was my sister's automobile. Upon entering, I noticed my sister, her husband, my ex, and my ex's mother. They had planned an intervention, accusing me of using a childish tactic to ignore my sister for too long. My ex tried to defend his previous behaviors by calling them romantic, but his mother claimed I was hurting my sister, who only wanted the best for me. She apologized on my sister's behalf and insisted that I forgive her. As they chatted, I secretly texted my father, brother, and husband for assistance, staring at my mother in bewilderment. Then my brother-in-law had the guts to call me hurtful and insist on acting like an adult, because I was going to give birth to a baby. My mother started reading a letter about how upset she was that her daughters were not close. She admitted my sister's mistakes, but said they were well-intentioned. My sister responded with her own sorrowful letter, essentially repeating what the others had said. I didn't say anything till my brother came, apparently enraged. He took my belongings and expressed anger and disappointment. We sat in his car until my father and husband arrived. My brother continued to apologize as I sobbed uncontrollably. After leaving, I wrote an email to everyone involved, except my mother, containing my lawyer's contact information and explaining that I no longer wanted to be contacted. I warned that any additional efforts would result in my contacting the police. Nobody has approached me personally, but my father has said that my mother and sister are hysterical. They aim to make things right, with my sister even suggesting that she become involved in my baby's life, potentially as a godmother. My father is currently staying with my brother, and they both completely support me. However, some family members disagree with my decision. Some mutual acquaintances have even contacted me to express their concern for my sister, who is spreading accusations that my husband is keeping me away from my family. To clear the air, I wrote a public post outlining all that had happened. My sister, brother-in-law, and ex are now receiving harsh criticism, which, while not fully my intention, I believe is justified. My mother is still distraught, which makes me feel awful, but not as horrible as her intervention did. I recently decided to chat with my mother about laying ground rules for any future contacts. These include family therapy, set boundaries, no sharing personal information with my sister, and separate holidays. Most importantly, I informed her that if she did something like this again, I would cut her off permanently. She believes these stipulations are excessive, but has decided to comply. However, she mistook this for rapid access to baby news. I explained that it is a process, and she must demonstrate that she has changed. My father and brother refused to speak with my sister and continue to apologize for not intervening sooner. I forgave them because they demonstrated growth. My husband supports whatever option I choose, but my mother-in-law is concerned whether cutting off my mother completely is the best strategy. Ultimately, it is my decision, but I am split about what to do with my mother. Update number 1. I'd want to thank everyone for their help and advice so far. I'd like to provide some additional context indicated in my comments, as I can't respond to each one individually. My ex and I split up when I was 18, and he is now 37. The breakup occurred because I did not want to be married or engaged at the moment. My sister's desire to reunite with him derives from her fixation on the idea of us marrying brothers and being best friends. My mother has always been polite to my husband, but I'm beginning to feel it was all a ruse, which makes me quite sad. My ex has had other relationships since our breakup and has 2 children with one of them, but he is never married. My sister believes that his refusal to marry anybody else is romantic, since it demonstrates that he only ever intended to marry me. However, I've heard that his obsessive behavior extends beyond me. He behaved similarly with his children's mother. My sister has encouraged him to refocus on me. She believes his assistance will put her back in my good graces, allowing her to be a decent aunt. My brother started distancing himself from my ex after I expressed my displeasure with having him around all the time. This transition occurred while I was attending college and visiting my family during breaks. My brother also made an extra effort to welcome my husband, which affected his friendship with my ex, who felt betrayed. Now, my husband is one of my brother's closest friends, and my brother only communicates with my ex when it concerns my nephew, my sister's son, or to avoid being impolite. While both of my parents first appeared supportive of my desire to avoid my ex, it turned out that only my father really agreed. On the day of the tea party, my mother informed my father that she was preparing my favorite tea and pastries for some quality time, but he was unable to stay. My father left to visit my uncle, believing it to be a considerate gift. He is now outraged that he was misled. My husband tried to get along with my sister when they first met, but now he simply ignores her, assuming she is mentally ill. We don't know if she is, but her actions remain unacceptable. The tea party ambush, which featured my ex and his mother, was intended to help me face the root of my issues with my sister, according to their official version. To clarify a few facts, we are not Indians, are not extremely religious, and there is no income discrepancy between my husband and my ex. If anything, my husband might be slightly better off financially. Finally, my sisters-in-law, my brother's wife and my husband's sisters, are outraged by the scenario. My husband and his sisters intend to approach their mother about her comment. Meanwhile, my brother and his wife are thinking about going no contact, ENC, with my mother permanently. They have chosen not to allow her to see my nephews for a while. The more I think about it, the more I believe I'll have to go to North Carolina with my mother for my child's sake. My husband is devastated by the possibility that all of her previous contacts with him were fabricated, but he is even more unhappy that she made me cry and doubted myself as a nice person. While there are still numerous conversations to have with my family about my mother, I have decided to seek a restraining order against my sister and my ex. Semi-update. I spoke with my mother, but she insists she knows best. She labeled me a nasty person and stated that she would pursue grandparents' rights or even custody. While I know none of what she said is true, I was still concerned, so we sent her an official letter about it. My father has recently moved out of their home permanently, telling her that he could not accept her tormenting her own child. My brother and his wife have also agreed to travel to North Carolina with her. I realize this may appear abrupt, but I believe I underestimated how much sorrow I felt following the intervention. Afterward, my husband spoke with everyone, urging them to think seriously about what they valued, but he made it plain that we would not raise our child in a toxic environment. It's one of the several reasons I adore him, reason number 3271, to be specific. My spouse has been saddened by my mother's deception and has determined never to give her anything again. My husband and his sisters also spoke with my mother-in-law about her comment, explaining why it was unacceptable. Fortunately, she is a compassionate and caring individual who comes from a supportive family, so she took their concerns seriously. Meanwhile, My father and brother continue to apologize for any part they played in the incident. My father is still in astonishment that things have progressed to this degree, describing it as unreal. Regardless, they are completely supportive of me and have committed to assist me in fighting any bogus attempts made by my mother and sister. Update 2. I'd like to thank everyone for their beautiful messages and encouraging words. Things are both wonderful and dreadful right now, but I'm trying to remain optimistic. My brother and his wife sat down with my nephews and explained that Grandma was ill and had attempted to harm Auntie, me, and their younger cousin. They informed the boys that Grandma would no longer be a part of their lives, but assured them that she still loved them. It was a difficult topic, but the children were intelligent and understanding. They also learned that my sister is no longer a part of their life. The boys didn't appear to care since they already detested her, not only because of my circumstances, but also because she hasn't been very nice to them. My mother lost it when she found out she was being cut off and began claiming she had rights and would be able to visit her grandchildren. My father is presently looking for a permanent residence, but he will stay with us until January. Primarily because my brother's mother-in-law is visiting and we have available space. He is quite sad about everything and has already contacted divorce lawyers, relocated his bank accounts, and made other required procedures. He has received innumerable emails, messages, and phone calls from my mother but has not responded to any of them, as recommended by his lawyer. In addition, the lawyer advised him not to block her for the time being. My father pondered forgiving her, but a few days after my previous post, my mother and sister showed up uninvited at my place. My sister had never visited my house, and my mother knew I didn't want her there, but she ignored my wishes. The cleaning lady, who was unaware of the circumstances, allowed them in. I observed their car as I was returning from errands. This time, I did not go inside. Instead, I contacted my relatives for assistance, and my husband's sister, who was close, arrived swiftly. She challenged them, telling them to leave or risk arrest for trespassing. They went, but I began to feel unwell. We went to the doctor, who told me that the stress was affecting my health and possibly endanger the baby. My father, along with my brother, uncle and husband, went to my parents' home to collect all of his stuff. My sister was there, yelling at my husband and accusing him of destroying her family. My father attacked my mother and sister, telling them that they had nearly murdered my kid and that he no longer wanted anything to do with them. Since then, my sister has been sending desperate messages to my brother, begging for assistance, but he refuses to intervene. I am devastated and saddened for my nephew, who is losing so much family because of his mother's behavior. However, this is the truth of the matter. Regarding my mother's threats about custody and grandparents' rights, my lawyer wrote her a letter noting that her actions were harmful to both my health and the baby's. The letter warned that continuing harassment would result in legal penalties. My brother also wrote her a letter highlighting her harassment of me. Both my mother and sister have declined therapy. While they may be mentally sick, it is evident that their actions have been consistent for a long time. I've resolved to prioritize enjoying the holidays with my supportive family, being healthy, and continuing therapy. Update 3. I received several requests for an update, so I thought I'd give a little more. First and foremost, I want to express my heartfelt gratitude to everyone who has left comments, notes, and suggestions. You have helped us become more cautious and prepared. Some folks wondered how we found out the baby's gender. We waited until after 20 weeks to announce due to a past loss. We had planned to announce the news when the miscarriage occurred the previous time, so we waited this time to preserve our feelings of security. Unfortunately, we were stupid to imagine that this announcement would be special for my mother. After posting, I gave the problem to my husband, who read all of the suggestions and comments. We conducted a thorough sweep of the house and, happily, discovered nothing unusual. However, we still felt insecure, so we moved to a hotel with my father. We later discovered there was a tracker on my dog's vest. My dog is small, cold, and routinely wears a vest, so we never considered checking there. We discovered the tracker when my father took him for a walk around the hotel, and my sister appeared, asking him about me and offering reconciliation. I was outraged and heartbroken, so we decided to relocate. Fortunately, we can afford it. We are renting out our old house to avoid leaving it empty, but I no longer feel at ease there. It seems destroyed and poisoned now. Unfortunately, my parents' house feels the same way, not only for me, but also for my brother, husband, father, sister-in-law, and my husband's family. We changed all of our phone numbers, purchased new equipment, and informed employers, friends, and the police about the problem. We also began individual and family therapy. Despite the fact that I have sincerely forgiven my father and brother, they are filled with remorse. We're all healing as a unit. Meanwhile, my sister and mother claim that they are not wrong and refuse to attend treatment. My father has prepared a new will. My sister's son will receive a trust fund and some inheritance, but my sister will receive only a modest sum. He is utterly finished with her. I originally felt sorry for her, but I've chosen to devote all of my energies to my daughter. My baby has arrived, and we consider ourselves really fortunate. It hasn't been the experience I expected because my mother isn't present, but many friends and family members have surprised us with their love and support. Toward the conclusion of the pregnancy, we got so careful that we tested people we didn't know by telling them I was going into labor. This approach worked, and we figured out who was still leaking information to my mother and sister. We cut them off right away, and the remainder understood once we explained our reasoning. My ex, whom my friends now refer to as Bates, began spreading false information that the kid was his, claiming we were having an affair due to my undying love for him. Fortunately, nobody believed him. My husband phoned Bates' job, outlining the situation. Long story short, Bates was suspended pending an internal review. I am almost certain he will be dismissed, as his boss has requested additional information and has apologized excessively. My mother has tried to find us, but everyone who knows where we are has stopped communicating with her. My father's lawyer issued her a letter informing her that, due to her instability, any communication would henceforth be handled through legal channels. I've recently been living with simply my husband and my father because I felt horrible about him being alone. He insists that he will be all right and that none of this is my fault, but I still feel terrible for him. He has been an excellent babysitter, feeding, and diaper changer. My nephews are still as affectionate as ever, and my father even got to see my sister's son. This occurred because my sister began producing threatening videos, claiming she would harm herself if my husband did not stop alienating her family. My father emailed her, offering to see her son but warned that if her threats persisted, he would contact the police. Fortunately, this appears to have ended the behavior. Finally, someone claimed that I gave Bates false hope. This could not be further from the truth. I spent years feeling uneasy, hoping he would move on. After speaking up and meeting my husband, I spent a lot of time fighting with my sister over this topic. I had a really long engagement, so I married after my sister. I still love my mother and sister, but I've chosen a healthier lifestyle for myself and my family over love. During this journey, I've learned incredible loyalty, love, and compassion from those around me. Strangely, I feel fortunate that everything exploded since it revealed who actually supported me. Update 4. We formally moved into our new home, with my father moving into the guest house. After numerous discussions, both within and outside of treatment, we agreed it was best for him to remain with us while preserving our separate places. We're still renting out the old house and will determine what to do with it later. My father now sees all of his grandchildren together around 3 times per week. However, he must meet my sister's child separately since she would not allow him to take her son unless she knows where he lives. While this may appear to be a fair concern, considering her unstable behavior, we do not want her anywhere near our new house. My mother complained to the lawyers about how unfair it is that my father gets to see his grandchildren, but there is nothing she can do. About a month ago, my father made a revelation that made me anxious. He stated that he has been paying for my nephews, my sister's sons, education and babysitting, which is why she continues to allow him visitation. He felt horrible about keeping it from me and didn't want any secrets between us. I assured him everything was all right and begged him not to feel bad about it. On Mother's Day, my father received an email containing a link to an Instagram account. The account included a sorrowful video about how my mother has been abandoned by the majority of her family, and how my sister is a saint for supporting her. It was sad and irritated me, yet I forwarded it to our lawyer. My father filed for divorce in May, and the process is still underway. My mother insists he is in the wrong, but my father has informed me he would rather drink bleach than reconcile with her. I suppose that's it. For Father's Day, my brother and husband took my father out, and they had a great day. My sister attempted to create drama by posting various things online, but we stopped my father from viewing them so he could enjoy the day. They also went camping with the kids, sort of. They booked a hotel suite, pitched a tent in the middle for the elder kids, and set up a little teepee for the newborn. Moments like these remind me of how much joy my baby has given to our life. I'm overjoyed to see my spouse as the wonderful father I knew he'd be. While it is exhausting, the support we have gotten from family and friends makes me really grateful. My sisters-in-law and I now use a calendar to organize activities for the children, ensuring that they are age-appropriate and fun for them. We have also made it obvious to the children that they do not have to spend time with someone they dislike, and that their feelings are important. Right now, all the youngsters are enamored with the infant and have declared themselves her protectors. We've done small gatherings like breakfasts, and family time has become enjoyable rather than stressful. Without my sister present, the atmosphere is much lighter. I know it's horrible to say, but she constantly appeared to drain the positivity from the room. My mother-in-law, MIL, also enjoys spending time with the baby and typically stays in the guest room once a week. She has been really respectful, constantly asking gently and making it obvious that she does not want to overstep or take the infant to sleepovers. I feel heard and valued by her. Despite this, I've broken down at times because I mourn my mother, the mother I believed I had, not the one who warned me I'd be a bad mother and a cruel woman. My therapist reminds me that this is a marathon, not a sprint, and urges me to focus on the good. Speaking of positives, Bates got fired from his job. Not only that, but his reputation in his sector has been entirely destroyed, on a nuclear scale. His brother, on the other hand, was unaffected because his industry does not place a high value on reputation, and as far as I know, he is still employed. Bates gave me a 12-page, double-sided, single-spaced letter about how sad he is that I am denying him what's his, and how my husband feels so threatened by him that he had to kill him professionally since he couldn't demolish anything else. I say seems because I did not read it. My lawyer did and provided a synopsis. I also heard through the grapevine, no, I don't ask. They just tell me since they know he is tracking me, that his children's mother had moved away, and he didn't care. He reportedly stated that it was for the best. This man does not care about his children and prefers to play family with me and my baby. Unfortunately, Bates will not be homeless because his mother has already allowed him to move back in with her. I doubt he'll learn anything from this. Not the most flashy of updates, but it is what it is. Oh, and my spouse burned or donated every single object given to him by my mother or parents, with my father's permission. He claims life is too short to allow her any space, even in memories. Hi, Reddit, I haven't seen you in a long time. I have a few updates for you. First, I'd like to thank everyone for their remarks and letters. Every time I come into this account, I am greeted with largely pleasant sentiments, which I appreciate greatly. For those looking for updates, the majority of them are good, so let's get started. My parents are now divorced following numerous disputes and tantrums by my mother. She maintained the house and received a lump sum settlement, but that's all. My dad is like a new guy, and we are all overjoyed for him. A little throwback. Despite the drama, we did not fire our cleaning lady. She has been assisting my husband's family for decades, and I was quite concerned about her being out of work due to my wild family. My father spoke with her, telling her she was on paid vacation until we had a new house and asking her to wait for us if she wanted. She was overjoyed, and her family was really grateful. Through this relationship, my father met her sister, who operates a nail shop, and they are now dating. She is a nice woman with adult children, so she knows our family's dynamics. My father has made it obvious that he does not want to move in or marry again, and she is content with that because she cherishes her independence. My mother almost had a stroke when she learned about his new relationship. She continued referring to it as a late midlife crisis and accusing him of being a sugar daddy. I haven't spoken with her, but I know she's hurting financially. She was never adept at budgeting and relied on my father to limit her excessive spending. My sister is also struggling now that my father has ceased aiding her with money. He was originally prepared to continue supporting her for the sake of my nephew, but things changed when my nephew began calling my child an affair baby, claiming she wasn't with her real dad, and even pushing one of my husband's nephews at a party, claiming they weren't actually cousins. The children were perplexed and promptly informed an adult. My father attempted talking to my nephew, but he continued saying the same things. When my father told my sister about it, she remarked, "Kids always tell the truth." That was the final straw. My father cut them off financially and informed her that adjustments needed to be done before he would reconsider. She panicked and screamed, but she refused to give in. Bates is still unemployed. Ironically, his employment involved vulnerable women and stalking, so he was sacked. The organization did not want the scandal to harm them, so they fired him. Bates has sent me 2 more handwritten, rambling letters, but because he only has my lawyer's address, they will be read, filed, and dealt with by my lawyer. My lawyer is a champion. A surprising thing occurred in the supermarket shop. A random woman approached me and inquired whether my baby was Bates's child. I was speechless. She told me he has images of us on his page and blamed me for hurting such a good man. It turns out that Bates is still spreading the story that my kid is his and that I adored him. What surprised me the most was that the photo she mentioned was never made public. It was only shared once with a family group. My husband and I immediately felt there was a rat in the family. After further inquiry, we discovered that my dad's 2 sisters were giving information to my mother. My father was terribly saddened, but he had no concerns about cutting them off. My brother and his family are doing well. We've spent family vacations together, and they've also stopped communicating with my mother and sister. My sister-in-law acknowledged she was never a fan of our mother, but she kept the peace for the family. My mother-in-law stays amazing. She is thrilled to get overnight babysitting privileges. She occasionally gathers all of her grandchildren under one roof, which they like. She even had to make her social media accounts private because my mother was stalking her, which she handled beautifully. My hubby continues to be my rock. We're thinking about having another baby or adopting. It is an honor to have these chats, and I am glad every day for the support system we have. I still miss my mother, the one I thought I had. I sometimes cry when I think about the milestones I can't share with her anymore. But, at the end of the day, she is not a decent person, and my family's safety comes first. This Father's Day, my husband and father went camping. It went smoothly, with the exception of a few mosquito bites and sunburns. Life is improving, and I'm determined to focus on the good. I was always ignored and undervalued by my parents. After my divorce, they exploited me financially and treated my son as a burden. I, 42F, work as an emergency room physician at a large Boston hospital. I am a single mother with a 7-year-old boy named Lucas. Today, I need to express something that has been bothering me for decades concerning my family dynamics, specifically my parents' behavior and its impact on my life. When I was 5 years old, my sister Abigail was born. Our parents told me that I was going to be a big sister and that it would be fantastic to have a lifelong buddy. They didn't mention that I had become invisible in our household. Every morning, Mom would prepare Abigail's breakfast to order. 2 eggs sunny side up, toast cut diagonally, just how my princess likes it. While tossing me a box of cereal without looking at me. The contrasts were evident throughout our daily lives. In elementary school, Mom would spend hours assisting Abigail with her schoolwork, gently explaining each problem. When I sought assistance, the reaction was always the same. You're smart enough to figure it out for yourself. They'd come to all of Abigail's soccer games, cheering from the sidelines, but they always had previous engagements when I had science competitions. When I required braces, Dad moaned about the price for months. Every dentist appointment was accompanied by sighs and murmured remarks about expenses. 2 years later, when Abigail required braces as well, money became irrelevant. They even got her the beautiful clear ones I had requested but was rejected. They're an investment in her confidence, Mom told her book club pals, as if my confidence wasn't important. My academic achievements were regarded with indifference. Straight A's in advanced science classes elicited distracted nods, yet Abigail's B+ in normal math prompted a joyful supper at her favorite downtown restaurant. During parent-teacher conferences, they hardly listened when my teachers commended my outstanding achievement in biology and chemistry, but smiled with pride when Abigail's teachers emphasized her engagement in class discussions. Birthday celebrations became a sharp reminder of our differing standing within the family. My parties were basic affairs, supermarket cake and a few pals in the backyard, if I was lucky enough to have one at all. Abigail's celebrations were full-fledged events, complete with bouncy houses, hired entertainers, custom-made cakes, and intricate theme decorations. One year, they even engaged a professional event planner. I once overheard Mom telling a friend, "Well, Abigail just appreciates these things more. Our older one is too practical." The remarks hurt, but I learned to ignore them. The toughest part was watching Abigail transform from a wonderful child to someone I scarcely recognized. In our childhood, we used to make blanket forts and make up funny stories about fantastic adventures. However, years of being treated as if she could do no wrong took its toll. By middle school, she had become exactly what you would anticipate. "Where's my blue sweater?" she'd ask, ransacking my closet without permission. "That's mine, Abigail. Mom bought it for my birthday." "Well, I need it for Jessica's party," she would explain. "Don't be selfish, let your sister borrow it," Mom would often say. My items became communal property, but I was not allowed to touch anything Abigail owned. I learned to pick my battles, expect nothing, and seek validation elsewhere. School became my refuge. While Abigail was being praised for her role in the school play, she had 2 lines. I was quietly winning science fairs and devising my escape plan. I participated in every academic club conceivable, volunteered at the local hospital, and spent my summers conducting research internships. My guidance counselor became my best champion, assisting me in applying for scholarships and providing wonderful recommendations. I shivered with excitement when my acceptance letter to Harvard Medical School arrived, along with a full scholarship. Finally, I figured, they'd have to recognize my accomplishments. I waited till dinner to ensure everyone was present. Instead of celebrating, Abigail dominated the evening with a dramatic reenactment of her 7th grade student council election campaign. I got a full scholarship to Harvard Medical School, I said during a rare pause. That is nice, honey. My mother responded. Abigail, sweetie, tell us more about your campaign posters. Medical school became my haven. During those early years, I only returned home for important holidays, and even then, I counted the minutes until I could escape. Every visit was the same. Abigail's accomplishments were highlighted, while my dean's list standings and prominent internship offers received little attention. I poured myself into my studies, succeeding at emergency medicine rotations and receiving wonderful referrals from renowned doctors. In my third year, I began an emergency medicine rotation at Massachusetts General Hospital. That is where I met Marcus. Marcus was a medical device sales agent, showcasing new trauma equipment to the department. Despite my normal cautious approach to relationships, something just snapped between us. He was unlike anyone I'd dated before, genuinely engaged in my work, supportive of my career goals, and seemingly unconcerned by my ambitions. After graduation, we got married in a simple ceremony. I got a job in the ER at Mass General, and everything felt fantastic. When our son Lucas was born, Marcus appeared to be the adoring father I had hoped for. We bought a house in a good school area, established a lovely nursery, and I felt I'd finally found the family life I'd always desired. But something changed once Lucas turned 1. Marcus became aloof, started working late, and canceled our date nights. Initially, I ascribed it to the difficulties of new fatherhood and my rigorous job as an ER physician. I suggested couples counseling, date nights, and even a trip, but he always found an excuse. Deep down, I sensed something was wrong, but I wasn't expecting what happened next. The confession happened on a routine Tuesday evening. I was feeding Lucas in his high chair when Marcus strolled in, looking as if he hadn't slept in days. I need to tell you something, he explained, his voice quivering. I have met someone else. Her name is Catherine. She is a patient's family member, and I am in love with her. My world collapsed in that moment, but years of emotional suppression had trained me to remain calm. The divorce was unexpectedly cordial. Marcus went to Colorado with Catherine, but he insisted on paying substantial alimony and child support. I may be a terrible husband, he observed at our most recent meeting, but I won't be a terrible father. True to his word, he has stayed active in Lucas's life through regular video conversations and holiday visits. Marcus's family became an unexpected source of support after the divorce. Regardless of what happened to their son, Tom and Betty remained dedicated grandparents to Lucas, and their daughter Avery became the aunt my sister never was. Every time we visited their house, Lucas would light up and run right to the toy zone they had put up exclusively for him. Tom would get down on the floor and play with trucks, while Avery always had a new game or craft project planned. My own parents' home was a very different scenario. I tried to see them on occasion, hoping they'd want to bond with their only granddaughter, but their apathy was heartbreaking to witness. Don't let him touch that vase, Mom would say, scarcely looking up from her magazine. And make sure he doesn't run around too much, he'll scratch the hardwood floors. Lucas would cling to my leg, sensing the frigid air. The contrast grew much more striking when Abigail showed up during our visits. Here's my successful girl, Dad would beam as Abigail walked in, talking about her new job at a trading company. They'd completely disregard Lucas's attempts to show them his latest drawing, instead focusing on Abigail's every word about workplace politics and client meetings. I'll provide updates shortly regarding recent occurrences that have made me reconsider everything about my relationship with my parents. It's still fresh, and I need time to comprehend everything. For the time being, my emphasis is on my son and the family members who have demonstrated the true meaning of unconditional love. Update number 1. Thank you all for your encouraging words. I've gathered my ideas and wanted to discuss how things changed following the divorce, especially my career and my parents' behavior. After Marcus left, I put myself into my job at the ER. I began working on the most difficult cases, those that other doctors generally avoided. Last year, there was one exceptionally tough case, a patient with many traumas and a convoluted medical history. 3 previous hospitals had transferred him because they deemed him too risky. I spent 16 hours stabilizing him and collaborating with many doctors, and he came through. That instance piqued the department head's interest. Dr. Mitchell, he called me into his office one morning, I've been following your performance. How do you feel about leading our new trauma response team? It meant increased responsibility, longer hours, and a significant wage boost. I agreed without hesitation. The team's success rate under my guidance much exceeded expectations. We decreased critical response times by 30% and had the highest survival rate in the hospital's history. My research papers on emergency trauma protocols have been published in top medical publications. Then followed the promotion to senior attending physician, complete with a corner office and a salary that made my eyes wet. With my newfound financial stability, I purchased a lovely 3-bedroom apartment in an excellent school area. Lucas was pleased to have his own room. "Mom, can I paint the walls blue? Like the ocean?" he inquired, his eyes gleaming. "Of course, sweetheart," I said, "we can do whatever you want." That weekend, Tom and Avery helped us paint, making it a family project. Betty brought baked cookies, and we ended up getting more paint on ourselves than on the walls. This was the point at which my parents' relationship began to change. It started with casual questions about my new lifestyle. Mom began phoning more frequently, asking about Lucas and arranging weekend trips. Initially, I was cautiously optimistic. Perhaps they'd want to be true grandparents to Lucas. The initial visit appeared promising. Mom actually got down on the floor to play with Lucas' train set, which I had never seen her do before. Dad even got him a new toy truck. But then the requests began to arrive, initially in tiny numbers. "The refrigerator is making strange noises. The bathroom needs some repairs." Each time, they'd say how tight their finances were and how they couldn't possibly afford it alone. I agreed to help, remembering all of Abigail's dance classes and summer camps that they had paid for but had denied me. Each request was followed by brief intervals of focused attention on Lucas. They'd invite us to dinner, inquire about his school, and express interest in his life. But it didn't last long. Meanwhile, Lucas was excelling at his new school. His teacher informed me, "He's exceptionally bright, particularly in science, just like his mom." Avery was beaming at the parent-teacher conference she and I went together. My folks, however, were too preoccupied that day. Every Wednesday, Avery gets him up from school and takes him to science club, which she began doing after observing his interest in my medical books. Tom and Betty have been constants in our lives. They come up every Sunday for family dinner, and Betty has been teaching Lucas how to bake. Last week, they baked chocolate chip cookies together, and Lucas boldly said, "I want to be both a doctor and a baker when I grow up." My parents' financial needs escalated to include a new water heater and house renovations. Then came the biggest one. "Sweetie," Dad called one Sunday, "your mother and I have been considering acquiring a new car. The payments would be costly for us, but with your new position." They named a character that would have made me choke a year ago. Now it was manageable. What followed, however, really struck a chord with me. "We'd pay you back, of course," Mom promised me, but we both knew they wouldn't. "We just need something dependable to drive Abigail to her job interviews. She's having a difficult time in that trading company. You're aware of how intense office politics can be." I agreed to help primarily out of habit. During our usual coffee meetup, Avery realized that something was amiss. "You seem tense," she commented, swirling her coffee. "Have your parents asked for money again?" I told her about the car, and she scowled. "You understand you don't owe them anything, right? Just because you're successful now doesn't mean you have to support their lifestyle." I dismissed her worries, assuring myself I had more than enough money. Wasn't it worth it if buying my parents' attention allowed Lucas to have grandparents in his life? But something felt wrong deep down, the way they'd casually discussed breaking off contact when I hesitated on a payment, and how their interest in Lucas appeared to be directly linked to my financial contributions. Last week, everything came to a head in unexpected ways, but that's another post I'll write when I'm ready. I have to leave now for my shift at the hospital, but I wanted to thank everyone for their kind words. Reading your stories about comparable events has made me feel less alone in this situation. Update 2. The recent occurrences I stated have dramatically altered my outlook on my relationship with my parents. I need to explain what happened during my emergency hospitalization last week. I was in the middle of a presentation at our weekly trauma team conference when the first wave of pain struck, sharp and unexpected, causing me to double over in mid-sentence. Our senior surgeon, Dr. Henderson, identified the symptoms immediately. "Classic appendicitis presentation. We need to get you into surgery." The irony of an ER doctor being an emergency patient did not escape my notice. My mind was racing with thoughts of Lucas as I prepared for surgery. He needed to get picked up from his robotics club in 2 hours. Tom and Betty were on a cruise, while Avery attended a conference in Chicago. Under normal circumstances, I would never approach my parents, but I was out of options. I called Mom when the nurses started my IV. It took 4 rings before she responded. "Mom, I'm in the hospital. My appendix needs to come out immediately. Could you please pick up Lucas from school? I'll need someone to watch him for a couple of days while I recover." The silence that ensued was deafening. "Oh honey, that's not possible," she exclaimed, her voice abruptly icy. "Your father and I are getting ready for Abigail's promotion party. She finally made junior executive at her company, and we're hosting 50 people at Luistro tonight." "Mom, please," I cried, attempting to maintain my voice despite the mounting anguish. Lucas needs to be picked up in less than 2 hours. I don't have anyone else right now. The nurse adjusted my IV and gave me a compassionate look. Well, that's not really our problem, she said harshly. We're in a hurry to get to the restaurant. We can't be babysitting right now. Besides, you know how Lucas is. Always being so noisy and touching everything. It's quite a burden, really. I couldn't believe what I heard. A burden? He's your grandson. After everything I've done for you, I've been paying your car loan for the past year, every time you needed money. She interrupted me with a laugh that froze me to the bone. Oh, we won't be needing your handouts anymore. Abigail's new position comes with an excellent salary. She's going to help us instead of you. The call went dead. I lay in the hospital bed, phone still clamped to my ear, tears mixed with cold sweat on my cheeks. The nurse softly touched my arm. Doctor Mitchell, do you have someone else we can call? I called Avery with shaky hands. She picked up on the first ring. Before I could finish explaining, she was already in action. Text me the school details. What time does he need to be picked up? Don't worry about anything else, I've already booked a trip back. We'll have a sleepover with my dog Max, won't we? Lucas enjoys playing with him anyway. But your conference, I started protesting. Stop it, Avery said forcefully. Lucas is my nephew. The conference can wait. Focus on getting better, okay? Lucas will be okay with me, I promise. The next thing I remembered was waking up in recovery, disoriented from anesthesia. My first conscious thought was about Lucas, but there was already a text message from Avery waiting. Lucas is having a blast. We made pizza and created a blanket fort. Max is on guard. Don't worry about anything other than getting better. She uploaded images over the next 2 days, showing Lucas helping her bake cookies, falling asleep in a mound of plush animals, and building Lego hospitals, just like where mommy works. When I was discharged, Avery took me home, having already stocked my fridge, scheduled a cleaning service, and set up a cozy recuperation area in my living room. When I went in, Lucas ran to embrace me, stopping just short when he realized I was ouchy. Aunt Avery let me help make breakfast every morning. And Max slept in my blanket fort, he stated triumphantly. The next day, while recovering from surgery, I came upon dozens of images from Abigail's promotion celebration, which had been posted on the same day I had surgery. Mom and Dad were beaming triumphantly beside Abigail in her expensive dress, with champagne toasts and an exquisite cake that must have cost a lot. Everyone was laughing and partying while I lay in a hospital bed, their grandson disregarded as a burden. That night, after Lucas had fallen asleep, I sat down at my computer. First, I canceled the automatic monthly transfer to my parents' account for their car payment, and then I blocked them on all social media platforms. Looking at the framed photo on my desk of Lucas and me in the park, laughing together while Max chased bubbles around us, I felt something change inside me. I've been trying to buy my parents love with money and tolerance for years, but real family, real love, is Avery flying back from her conference without hesitation, Tom and Betty FaceTiming Lucas every night while on their cruise, allowing him to show them his latest drawings, and Max the dog guarding my son's blanket fort while I'm in the hospital. I need some time to comprehend everything, but I'll post another update soon. For the time being, I'm focusing on recovery and being present for my son. The hospital granted me 2 weeks of medical leave, and Avery insists on staying with us until I'm back on my feet. Yesterday, she assisted Lucas in decorating my recovery room with his science fair paintings, to make it pretty like the hospital, he stated honestly. But better because it has my art. The realization that my son has never experienced the kind of conditional love I grew up with makes all of this worthwhile. He understands that he is loved for who he is rather than what he can contribute, and that may be the greatest gift of all. I'll post update 3 shortly on what happened when my parents discovered their monthly car payments had stopped, but for now, I need to relax and enjoy this tranquil time with my true family. Update 3 First and foremost, I'd like to express my gratitude to everyone for their encouraging comments and messages, which helped me persevere through what followed. As many of you predicted, my parents did not take the canceled car payments well. It began with a flood of voicemails and texts, each more desperate than the last. I blocked their numbers, but they started using different phones. The messages ranged from guilt-tripping, "How could you do this to your own parents?" to angry threats. "We'll tell everyone you're an ungrateful daughter." to tearful pleas, "We're going to lose the car because of you." There was no mention of Lucas in any of the messages, and there was no apology for how they treated us during my hospitalization. Everything was about them, their demands, their car, their feelings, their social status. Then came the flying monkeys, and distant relatives and family acquaintances began phoning to tell me how I had broken my parents' hearts. "They're getting older, my Aunt Susan admonished. It's your duty as their daughter to help them. I wanted to question where their sense of duty was when their grandson needed them, but instead I simply blocked those numbers. Last Sunday, I was sitting in our backyard, watching Lucas and Max play fetch while Avery grilled burgers for lunch, when a car I didn't know drove into my driveway. Mom stepped out with her best church social smile. "Paula, sweetheart," she shouted out, using my first name, which she only does when she wants something. "How are you? We've been worried since you stopped returning our calls." I stayed sat, keeping my voice quiet for Lucas' sake. "What do you want, Mom?" She sat on the edge of a patio chair and smoothed her fashionable skirt. "Well, since you ask, your father and I are in a bit of a predicament with the vehicle payments," she began, letting out that theatrical sigh I knew so well. "You see, we assumed Abigail would help us with her new position and all, but when we asked her," she stopped for dramatic effect. "She just refused. Can you believe it? She said she had her own expenses to worry about after everything we'd done for her." The irony was nearly too much, and I tried not to chuckle. "Oh," she said, her voice lowering. "We were hoping you could start helping with the payments again, just until we figure something else out." When I didn't react right away, she said, "We could lose the car, you know, and then how would we go to all our social engagements?" This time, I couldn't contain my laughter. It spilled forth, sharp and bitter. "Mom, this isn't funny," she said. "We could lose the car." "Do you know what is funny?" I said. 3 months ago, while I was being rushed into emergency surgery, you labeled my son, your grandson, a burden. You couldn't be bothered to assist us since you were too busy celebrating Abigail's advancement. The same Abigail who now refuses to give you a cent. We were just busy that day. You know how these things are," she stuttered. "No, Mom. I know precisely what it was. I was helpful when I paid your debts. Lucas and I became problematic once you believed Abigail could replace me as your personal ATM. That is not fair. We have always what?" I cut her off. "Have you always favored Abigail? Always treated me as if I were second best? Always took my assistance for granted until something better came along?" "Paula, please," her voice broke. "You called my financial assistance handouts, remember? Right before you hung up on me while I was in the hospital? So, guess what? The handouts are done. I'm done attempting to purchase your love. I've had enough of you treating my baby as if he's less important than Abigail's luxury purses. I'm just finished." "But the car?" I stood up, fully free of the burden I'd carried my entire life. "This is no longer my problem. Goodbye, Mom." Lucas dashed over, Max bouncing beside him. "Mommy, see what I can do," he screamed, throwing the ball in a beautiful arc, which Max caught midway. Mom opened her lips to say something, but I interrupted her with a look, and she walked back to her borrowed car and drove away. That evening, we had our customary Sunday family meal with Tom, Betty, and Avery. Lucas proudly demonstrated his new ball-throwing technique as Tom barbecued and Betty set up the patio table. As I saw my son laugh as Avery taught him how to make s'mores, I felt at ease about my decision. Last week, Lucas brought home a family tree project from school, and he had put Tom and Betty right next to me, with Avery and Max nearby. Marcus had his own small branch, and we've maintained things friendly there with regular video chats and holiday visits. However, neither my parents nor Abigail appeared on the page. "Is everything okay, Mommy?" he asked, showing me his work. Miss Johnson said family trees generally include more members, but I told her these are all we need. I posted his drawing on the fridge next to a photo from his previous birthday party, with all of us gathered around the cake and real grins on everyone's faces. "It's perfect, baby," I told him. "Totally perfect. Sometimes the family you're born into isn't the family you're supposed to have, and you have to let go of the people who should have loved you in order to make place for the ones who do." It took me 42 years to grasp that lesson, but witnessing Lucas grow up in an environment filled with genuine, unconditional love was well worth the wait. Thank you to everyone who shared their tales in the comments. You gave me the strength I needed to break free from the cycle of conditional love and manipulation. Lucas and I are doing well because we are surrounded by folks who demonstrate what true family means every day. Am I the asshole for skipping my brother's wedding after his fiance's reckless prank on my husband led to false accusations and family conflict? Thinking about not attending my brother's wedding because his fiance's prank on my husband. I am a 25 female, my husband is 30 male, my brother 32 male and his fiance, 31 female recently came to visit us in our city. My partner and I are new homeowners and they were staying with us for the first time. My brother's fiance loves Halloween. She is also a Disney adult and has a childlike side to her which comes out sometimes. She's just super involved, absorbed, when it comes to her interests. Anyway, I'm just sharing this for context because my perspective is that she often gets carried away, and I genuinely feel what I am going to describe was the result of one of those moments where she just took it too far and suffered some negative consequences. She is, however, taking it as a very personal attack. So we disagreed, and the disagreement resulted in my husband cutting their visit short. AKA they were asked to leave. 31F has made comments more than a few times now since meeting him, that my husband gives off a dark vibe. She is always comparing him to characters from various books she reads. It's not necessarily criticism, she always explains that they are compliments. Well, I'm not sure anymore. Her reasons for these comparisons are based on his looks, the general vibe he gives off, and his tattoo. He only has one, but it's on his hand. During this recent visit, she mentioned she would love to see someone like him get scared because she can't imagine him getting startled, or letting out a scream. Scaring him became her goal during her stay with us. None of us knew about it, not even my brother. The incident causing all the trouble is that she tried to jump scare my husband in the garage. It was dark and she ambushed him in the garage while wearing a full outfit and mask when he was returning from a run. Well, he didn't let out the scream she wanted. He instinctively reacted by shoving her against the wall. She hit her head and was quite shaken up. Luckily, he realized very quickly by the sound she made that it likely wasn't an intruder. He switched the lights on and pulled her mask off. He told me he was very confused at the moment. Why would she attack him? My husband helped her inside, apologized, made her tea, and then called me. I was out with my brother. When we got home, I asked 31F if she was okay, and I said her prank was stupid to do because she could have gotten seriously hurt. I don't know if it was what I said that bothered her or if she was just waiting for her partner to come home, but she launched into crying about how my husband used an excessive amount of force, knowing it was most likely her just doing a harmless prank. In a nutshell, my husband asked her straightforwardly, "Are you implying I intentionally assaulted you?" She hesitated but chose to say yes, and my husband responded to that with "Get out of my house." I tried to smooth it, but my husband was adamant if that's what she genuinely believes, she's not welcome to stay. 31F chose to stick to her accusation. I decided to side with my husband. My brother is angry with me. He thinks I should have tried to do damage control and let them stay by convincing my husband to lean more into apologizing and placating his fiancée who was just recovering from the situation. He thinks this whole thing would have blown over if I'd helped my husband fold. I find this unfair. My brother was counting on me to handle all this, yet he didn't speak up during the conversation or try to talk sense into his fiancée. My husband remained calm the entire time, but he obviously felt insulted by her remarks, and I think that's valid. Why should I have taken my brother's fiancée's side over my own husband? Especially when I feel like she was wrong for doing all that, then turning around and accusing my husband of wanting to hurt her. My brother says I was short-sighted and should think of their upcoming wedding, but I think he is the one who needs to get his fiancée to apologize to my husband. Editing to add the text below, in an attempt to answer some things that are getting lost in comments. I would like to clarify, when I meant I tried to smooth the situation, I was not taking 31F's side or doubting my husband in any way. I simply tried to get everyone to consider tabling this until emotions had cooled down. And by those emotions, I mean the hysterics of my brother's fiancée. My husband was calm throughout, although there was an obvious finality about his decision. He made his statement and disengaged. As mentioned, my brother looked to me hoping I'd persuade my husband, but I didn't, so they had to leave. The costume. I mentioned in a comment that I didn't get an opportunity to ask that night if she bought an outfit specifically for this prank or if it was my brother's Halloween costume. They go to adult Halloween parties, and we're attending one this weekend 2 hours from where we live. It was part of my brother's costume. A mask, like a golden masquerade one but more coverage. It reminded me of the gold-jeweled animal masks from Squid Game, or something you'd wear to a Rothschild party in the 70s. And she had on a long robe, a cloak with a hood. People asked me to update. I will do that. Please look at my comments too in case I already answered a question you might have, but I think these two were the ones I saw pop up the most. I'm sorry I can't keep up with all the comments. I really tried. I will be showing this thread to my brother. Comments. Comment 1. If she hadn't hidden in the dark garage in a hooded costume, none of this would have happened. There's no way he would have known in the moment that it was her, and I believe anyone would have a similar reaction. Frankly, she's lucky she was not hurt more than she was. There's a direct cause effect here, yet she's not accepting responsibility. I think her behavior falls into the play stupid games category. Your husband doesn't have anything to apologize for, and it's offensive for them to try to obfuscate her responsibility. NTA comment 2. Exactly this. It's one thing to come out of a closet into a well-lighted room, and completely another to jump someone in a dark garage. She's lucky he didn't break her nose or her jaw. Comment 3. I live in Oklahoma. She's lucky she didn't get shot. Comment 4. Texas here. Getting shot is a real possibility. That's beyond stupid on her part. I can guarantee you that I will not be attacked again. Not funny. Comment 5. NTA. Your future SIL is deranged. She attacked someone coming into his own home. He reacted accordingly. How would he know it was her? She FAFO. Your brother should have told her it's her own fault. Be prepared for more dramatics once they are married and go LC now. Nothing will ever be her fault. Edited to add, call your family now and tell them what happened before they spin it and blame your husband for reacting appropriately. Comment 6. Their relationship dynamics are concerning. You might want to distance yourself from her drama. Update, 19 days later. I got a lot of messages requesting an update. I have never made one before, so I hope I am going about this correctly. To recap my previous post, my 25F brother's fiancé, 31F, decided to jump scare my husband, 30M, in our dark garage because she wanted to get a reaction from him and possibly hear him scream. As ridiculous as it sounds, this is the only motive we have been able to get out of her. My husband responded to her jump scare by instinctively shoving her against the wall. Luckily for her, he heard her voice and recognized that it wasn't an intruder. He apologized to her at that moment, helped her inside, and calmed her down. He told me he was gentle and understanding, but once she was seated and started to calm down, he made it very clear to her that her actions were reckless and could have led to serious harm. It's my personal opinion that she didn't like the change in his demeanor and being told off because it meant she was no longer the victim, but the transgressor. In a shitty attempt to get herself out of the hot seat, she decided to accuse my husband of using excessive force, implying that he intentionally assaulted her, even though she was the one who initiated the whole situation. This led to an emotional reaction from my brother, and heightened the tension between him and my husband. My husband was zero tolerance about the theatrics, FSIL in hysterics, and my brother getting riled up about it. He kicked them both out. You can read the details of the first post here. Update, I tried to talk to my brother multiple times after the incident, but each attempt ended in silence because I refused to give in to his demands. He wanted my husband and me to apologize to his fiancée, starting with me downplaying the whole situation so she wouldn't feel bad about her prank. I hesitated to send him the Reddit post I'd made. Initially, I thought it might work against us to make things worse. But his total inability to reason with me or see the situation for what it was became beyond frustrating. Since I couldn't physically deliver a cold hard slap to his face for asking me to be complacent and allowing my husband to be falsely accused of assault, I figured the next best thing would be for him to read all your comments. Following the advice I got here, I tried to get ahead of the situation by informing my parents. My dad, a reasonable and practical man, immediately sided with my husband. His comments were similar to what a lot of people here had said, focusing on how dangerous and reckless the prank was and the ramifications of being falsely accused of assault. My mom, who unfortunately has always favored my brother, suggested we at least hear her out, referring to my brother's fiancée. As vivid as I was about her reaction, I wasn't surprised by it. My dad did try to shut down her skepticism, but she remained on my brother's side for a few days, until I showed them footage from my brother's Tesla, which he had tried to delete. The Sentry thing, sorry if I'm using the terminology incorrectly, I'm not a Tesla owner, recorded part of the interaction in the garage, not the jump scare itself, but the aftermath, which IMO was more crucial. My husband's account was confirmed. He used a measured amount of force to immobilize her and was prepared to escalate if necessary, which is beyond generous for someone to do in a situation like that, and definitely not owed. Many of you speculated that she might have a fixation or even a crush on my husband, and I'm starting to reconsider some past interactions with that in mind. I also misunderstood what dark books she expressed she enjoyed, and compared my fiancé to. I learned from comments here that they are actually a subtype of the romance genre. I didn't know she was comparing him to characters in romance novels because one of the characters I recall her comparing my husband to was from a book about dragons. I genuinely wish I still remembered the names of various characters she's mentioned over the months so I could satisfy my own curiosity, but my brain glossed over the names during conversations. We have a group chat for the wedding, which includes my brother, my parents, my brother's fiancé, and her parents. In that chat, I addressed the incident but didn't share the Tesla footage, only mentioned that it exists. Her parents didn't respond in the chat, though I know they saw the message. Later, her mom called mine. Apparently, they had no idea about the prank. It's hard to say whether they believe me or if they've taken their daughter's side after speaking with her. My brother's fiancé, and my brother, have both extended apologies to my husband, and have requested our presence at their upcoming wedding. My parents, trying to keep the peace, have encouraged us to go, saying it's the honorable thing to do. So, for the sake of family formality, we've decided to attend. However, my husband has made it clear that we'll be there out of obligation. We will be keeping a distance from them going forward. We haven't explicitly stated it, but there will be no future invitations to our home, not even for the holiday dinner we had planned before all this happened. My husband is going to minimize all future interaction with my brother's fiancée. I don't think we'll ever trust her again. I'll try to spend some one-on-one time with my brother to gauge where we stand. Our relationship feels strained, and this incident has made me realize that I lost him to her long before this happened, something I hadn't fully recognized until now. Thanks to everyone for sharing your opinions. A reporter from a news outlet reached out to me, and I remember requesting that if anyone uses my story, I would like them to pass on the following sentiment. I hope that if you share my story, you can help highlight the dangers of ambush-style pranks. These types of pranks create a threatening environment and put everyone involved at risk of serious harm or injury. They are stupid and dangerous. No one should have to feel threatened or be put in a position where their safety is compromised for the sake of a prank. If that's the setup, then it's not a prank. Actions like these will always have consequences, some of which may be irreparable, and no prank is worth the risk of someone getting hurt. Editing to add a little footnote, I understand people get curious and invested, but please consider this my final update. If necessary, I will update again in the future, but it will be unlikely and I assure you it won't be anytime soon. I got a lot of DMs requesting updates on the previous post, so I thought I'd place this disclaimer here. And another edit to fix the formatting. I wrote this post in my notes app first, which was a dodo move apparently. Sorry, I suck at this. Comments. Comment 1. Still NTA, and your SIL is still lucky that all she got was a shove against the wall. Doing dumb shit tends to get people killed more often than not. Comment 2. Please make sure to keep a copy of that video and if possible a written statement from your future SIL. She can always backtrack and try to ruin your husband's life with a false accusation. Oop. We have a copy. Comment 3. That's good, I would still be very careful with your whole family. Your husband was attacked and it seems they are all very happy to keep it hush-hush. I know you are trying your best and I applaud you for it, but please never forget they are willing to appease that psycho no matter the consequences to your husband. Final update, 2 months later. I still get the odd message or notification on this account, which is surprising to me. I always feel bad because I can't feed the interest with a truly juicy update. TLDR, my brother and his partner got married, she is pregnant and we are no contact. This is the last one from me, guys. I did read, or try to read, some of the books I got recommended that would show me what my husband is being compared to. I mostly did this for entertainment purposes. I think some fans of these books will get mad, but I'll just be honest, these books are not for me. I got up to book 3 in ASOTAR, although my skimming increased with each book. I made it through a little bit of the 4th one and that's when my brain just couldn't take any more. I think my husband was supposed to be Rhys-and. After reading 3 + 1 half-ish books, I don't quite see it. I found both Rhys-and Fair increasingly annoying as the books went on. I just DNF'd. They're not my people. If I had to pick, Asriel seemed a little more like my husband, maybe, based on just loose vibes that I got. I also read Fourth Wing, just the one book, and I won't be reading the rest of the series. I think my husband was supposed to be Xaden. He's actually more of a Liam personality-wise. These were the main 2 books. Anyway, the actual update, my brother and his fiancée got married. She was pregnant. My mom had already suspected apparently, but the pregnancy was announced during the wedding. The pregnancy has made my parents kind of soften. My mom is distracted about becoming a grandma. It hasn't changed how I feel. I still think it's a mistake that he's marrying her, and I'm worried about him. But I also don't have any intense feelings. It's his life. My husband didn't have to attend the wedding. We all said he could skip it, but he wanted to accompany me. Nothing dramatic happened at the wedding. We did keep it a bit of a distance, so maybe we missed any drama if there was some. I did learn something disturbing from someone who has spent more time with my brother's wife. She had apparently made some disgusting comments about my husband in the past. She had said he looks like a Legend comics character. It feels nasty to direct quote her, so I will just paraphrase. She basically implied he is so essayable and or would be doing the essay or something. I don't know if any of this has to do with the context of these types of comics. This was all apparently said in a WhatsApp chat, but no proof of the conversation because the person who told me said she got a new phone and didn't back up her WhatsApp. I don't have any reason to believe she would make this up though. I didn't confront my brother's wife about this comment because it was said a long time ago and it just doesn't seem worth bringing up. We have just continued our no contact. Like I said, pretty boring update, but it's truly my final one now that the wedding is over. Comments. Comment 1. At this point I would go NC, the parents are useless, the husband's reputation is being tainted and there's nothing op and the family can do except just accept that's how it is. Loser if you'd ask me. There will be potentially more hideous incidents in future if the husband keeps attending op's family gathering where the sill would be there, and I'm afraid it will affect op's marriage sooner or later if no NC at this point. YDK about you guys, but I prefer to prevent than repair. There are some things in life you cannot repair. Comment 2. Wow, that's crazy. Definitely keep your distance from SL and maybe put up some more cameras. I pity your brother because he's in for a rough ride with the person he chose to marry and procreate with, but then again he doubles down and backs her outrageous claims. Hopefully you can move on without any more issues with the crazy SIL. I would be wary of family dinners or holidays without recording them to protect yourselves. My wife hid that she's asexual. I asked for a divorce, she refused, and even tried to open the relationship by offering her best friend to me. My wife, 29F, and I, 34M, have been married for 4 years, and up until a year and a half ago, things were fantastic. Our marriage began to deteriorate after there was a significant drop in sex between us, not intimacy, just the actual sex part of the relationship. We would still cuddle and have deep intimate moments talking and just being around each other, but she kept rejecting my attempts at taking things further past kissing. Now we have had no problem communicating, so I made sure to address it early, and we talked and made adjustments. We both made sure to stay in shape, we tried being more adventurous, we went to couples therapy, joint counseling, and even tested both of our hormone levels. Everything was normal. Each solution would work for a little while and then we'd be back to having sex maybe once a month. I asked her several times if she was no longer attracted to me, to which she denied every time. I asked her if I was falling short in the relationship in any other way, to which she said no. Well, about a month ago, she got back from her therapy session and told me that she believes that she's asexual and that's the reason for her libido being non-existent as of late. I was definitely confused because we had such great sex for a while in the beginning of our relationship, but her telling me that she's now asexual was heartbreaking because everything else is great. Obviously I'm not going to force her to have sex, so we had a long conversation about our relationship and I came to the conclusion that we should get a divorce. I say I because she immediately rejected the idea and said we would figure something out and wouldn't talk to me about it anymore. I didn't know what to say, so I dropped it. Well, 3 weeks go by, without sex, and I decided that I have to do this for my own mental well-being, so I filed for divorce and had her served with the papers. Last week when I got home from work, she was going about the day like nothing was wrong. I asked her if she signed the papers and she flat out said, "We are not getting a divorce," and changed the subject and acted like things were normal. Obviously I thought this was crazy, so I stopped her and said I couldn't be in a marriage devoid of sex, and I mentioned that I was being incredibly fair with our divorce. She can keep the house that we bought and paid for with cash. She paid 1/3, I paid 2/3. I'd take all of the debt, which isn't much, we'd split our savings and investments in half, and she can keep 2 of our 3 paid off cars. I only wanted to keep my sports car. Thankfully we don't have kids. I love her and want her to be comfortable, and I have no problem starting over since I make a good income. But she won't budge or talk about the divorce. This brings us to 2 days ago. I get home and go to our bedroom and find my wife's friend, 27F, in our bed naked. I immediately shut the door, said sorry, and went looking for my wife. I found her in the kitchen and asked what her friend was doing here, and she said that she was here for me. I put 2 and 2 together and said that I'm not having sex with other women in place of the woman I chose to marry. She was adamant on saying that I could sleep with her whenever I wanted and that her friend agreed to it. I couldn't believe things would get this far, so I went back to our bedroom and asked her friend to leave. I packed a bag and I've been staying in a hotel nearby since that night. My wife, her mother, and her sister keep calling me, but I'm just not interested in hearing what they have to say. This feels like a trick. I just want this whole thing to be over. Does anyone have advice? Is this some kind of ploy for alimony? We do have a prenup? Should I just contact my lawyer and try to force the divorce? I'm really uncomfortable with this entire situation. Edit. We talked last night, I'll update when I get home from work. Edit 2. Here's the update if anyone's interested. I'll try to keep this as concise as possible. I feel overwhelmed, so I probably won't bother with another update after this one, I don't know. My wife came to my hotel last night and we talked about everything. She told me the full truth and what's going on in her mind. A few of you commented on this in the last post, so you were right. She has always been asexual. She and her whole family has known this since she was 16. Apparently this is the reason why her last long-term relationship of 3 years ended. He broke up with her after the sex between them diminished to being non-existent after the first year. She told me that sex is easier for her in the beginning when emotions are running high, but she still needs to force herself to have it. I knew they broke up due to unresolvable differences, but I didn't ask for details, nor did she tell me. After a lot of apologies and crying, she told me that I was the first person she was able to tolerate sex with for so long, and that she did enjoy it a handful of times. But after a while she still felt like she was being raped. I broke down after hearing this and started kicking myself for not catching on to any of this. She said she tried her best to please me as much as she could. She still doesn't want a divorce, and she doesn't want the house, cars, or the savings. She just wants me and is ready to do whatever it takes to keep me. She even said that she would sign a postnup stating this. As for her friend, she was there during her last breakup and helped to support her through it. My wife went to her after I brought up divorce and talked things out. Her friend suggested that she open the relationship for me, but she said she didn't want me sleeping with strange women, so her friend volunteered herself to be the one that sleeps with me. My wife thought this was a great idea, which led to the fiasco at our house. I won't comment on her appearance because it doesn't matter, and I don't blame the friend. My lawyer got back to me. You were all right. I don't need her permission, but I will have to wait if I want to push it through. I asked her why she lied to me this entire time, and she said she was tired of being rejected after revealing she was asexual, so she convinced herself that she would be able to force herself to have sex during the relationship. The hormone testing, the sessions in couples therapy, and all of our solutions was just her buying time to find another way around sex, or give herself enough time to build up the strength to start regularly having sex with me again. Our conversation ended with us holding each other in bed crying for a couple of hours. No, we didn't have sex. She pleaded with me to hold off on the divorce to look for a solution together and left my hotel room. I'm now sitting alone typing this fucking post. I guess I found out that we don't share everything with each other. Thank you to everyone who has messaged me directly. I'm still trying to get to all of them. I don't know what I'm going to do. Comments. Comment 1. You did right, bro. Let your attorney handle this. Do not have sex with anyone until your attorney says you're in the clear. Oop. That's my only course of action right now. I'm going to look for an apartment tomorrow. Comment 2. Also, why are you offering her so much? Split the marital property equitably and move on. If you even have the slightest inclination that she's trying to set you up, then don't just roll over and let her have everything, because that won't be enough for her and her attorney. Comment 3. This, OP. I don't see any reason that the judge wouldn't just divide the assets and liabilities 50-50. I understand wanting to offer her more to get her to sign, but if she's not willing to do that and you have to go to court about it, you're gonna want to tighten up so you have some leverage. OP. She has been wonderful to me otherwise. I don't feel like she should be punished for finding out who she is. I want her to be comfortable because she doesn't make nearly as much as I do. I can bounce back with no issue. She'll still have to work to provide for herself unless she marries another high earner or becomes one herself. A fresh start doesn't scare me at all. Comment 4. That's nice of you, but she's being manipulative and sketchy as hell with this latest stunt. You being so nice about it is fair enough. Comment 5. I don't know if she's being maliciously manipulative. Most likely she's terrified of him leaving her and is in denial or doing everything possible to get him to stay, or both. He says everything is perfect except for the lack of sex, so she sees this as they can stay together if she provides him someone to have sex with that isn't her. It's not a black and white situation. And while I agree the wife's actions are not appropriate, I think she's acting out of fear and love. Again, that doesn't make it okay, just that we don't have enough information to say that she 100% is trying to trap him in anything. Update. 2 weeks later. I don't think I can link my previous post, so just go to my profile I guess if you care to read the op. I've tried to read every comment, message and take to heart what most of you had to say. Also please stop messaging me. I can't respond to everyone, it's too much. I'll make this as short as possible. After my last update, my wife asked me to meet with her about a week later to discuss things with her. I've been staying at an extended stay since that night with her friend. We met at our house and talked for a few hours. She started off with a ton of apologies for how she acted, her lying about her sexuality, and not taking my sexual needs more seriously. Before I could say anything, she presented a signed postnup agreement she had drafted with a lawyer stating that she doesn't want anything, the house, the cars, savings, everything. I felt like the biggest asshole for thinking that she was tricking me for more money. I asked her if she was serious and she told me to take the postnup with me and sign it when I'm ready. I still haven't signed it, it's in my backpack. I told her that I still think divorce is our best course of action and that we both deserve to find someone who matches our needs. She still refused and borderline begged me to reconsider. She started crying and so did I. Seeing her like this was devastating. I told her that finding other women to sleep with me wasn't going to work. What if I develop feelings for them? What if I get one of them pregnant? Do we expect her to get an abortion? She said we'll figure it out as we go along, and to please give her more time to work on other solutions. She set up appointments for sex and hormone therapy, and it's seeing a sex guru. I said that it sounds like we're going through the same things again, but she was adamant and pleaded with me to wait. There were more apologies on both sides and we kissed for a while before ending the conversation, then I went back to my hotel that night. A few days later I tried texting her but she didn't respond, so I called her dad. I'm avoiding her mother and sister since they are saying the same things as my wife. Her dad told me that she moved back home and has been holed up in her room since our talk. She called out of work. He told me that she's barely eating, bathing, or talking to him or her mom. He asked me what I was going to do but I didn't have an answer for him. He just said he understands and said he would be here to talk anytime I wanted to. So I went back to our house and a good portion of her stuff was gone. The whole place feels empty. I've been sleeping in one of the spare rooms. I'm planning on flying to my mother's house in a couple weeks to spend time with my family to decompress from this entire situation. I'm still on the divorce side of the fence but I guess there's no rush. Thank you to everyone for your insight and concern. Seriously, I know we're all strangers but most of you have been a huge help to my mental health. Seriously, thank you. Also my cousin uses Reddit and reached out after he found my last post and asked me to shout him out if I made an update. Love you Virgil, thank you for being there for me. I think I'll just make a quick edit to this post once we reach a resolution for anyone that cares. Comments. Comment 1. It's a tough situation, but if having an intimate physical relationship with your wife is important, I think you know what needs to be done. Sucks for everyone involved. Godspeed. Comment 2. Sex in a relationship is like the toilet in your house, it's not the first thing you mention when talking about it, but if it's not working then it's immediately noticed. Update, 10 months later? Hey everyone, in hindsight I regret making these posts because I think I received too many pieces of advice. I keep thinking I should have just handled it internally with just family. I don't regret my decisions, I just wish I gave myself more time to think. Anyway, here's the update. I'll keep it short. The divorce was finalized months ago, our house was sold along with one of the cars, and my ex-wife is still living with her parents. I had a little more than 2/3 of the proceeds wired to her account but the last time I talked to her dad she hadn't touched a dime. I was informed that she checked into a mental health clinic but I don't know how long she was there or what her current state is. I changed my number but her dad has emailed me a few times to check on me throughout this last year, which breaks my heart because he's a great man. Him playing both sides of the fence like this really made everything go a lot smoother. Other than not warning me, which I honestly don't think it was his place to, he's been a huge help. I moved back to my home state to be closer to my family. I may leave to go to another state again. I don't know, I'm not sure yet. I feel numb from this whole thing. Not much of a drinker so I've been smoking a ton of pot and working out to occupy my mind. To everyone who didn't get a response from me in my messages, I'm sorry but there were just too many. I responded to as many as I could mentally handle. I think that's it. I can't imagine that there would be any additional questions, but I'll answer whatever I can. Comments. Comment 1. Wow. Hope you both find some type of lasting happiness. You move on. Your ex is hopefully finding some peace. Comment 2. I'm not so sympathetic to his ex-wife. She lied to him for years, misled him, and drew this out and took years of his life away trying to live her version of happiness at his expense. It's unfortunate she's taking it so hard, but what she did to him was cruel and selfish. Comment 3. Do you love her at all? I feel like men are all thinking with dicks like is there no love if there's no sex? Like how is being asexual worth a surprise divorce with no discussion, and how you are supported by people on Reddit is just a joke. Love does not equal to sex and if you're willing to dump the woman you made vows to based on sex then you don't understand love at all. You won't find love ever and anything you find going forward is not going to be more than lust. OOP. We tried to fix things for over a year. I understand where you're coming from, but I guess my question to you is, what can you live with and without in a relationship? Money, attraction, respect, intimacy, non-sexual, security? Which one of these are you comfortable with losing in your relationships? Am I the asshole for cutting off my parents after my mom refused to care for me postpartum, even though she did it for my siblings? Throwaway account, and my English writing is really bad. Please bear with me. So I 28 female, am 30 weeks pregnant with my first child and am about to move to another state, and mom has this thing where she takes care of my siblings when they give birth until they recover. She has done it for my older sister and my brother's wife so I thought that she would do the same thing with me too but a week ago she told me that she couldn't because it is too far away. We got into a fight about the whole thing, and I told her to get out of my house, and now we are not talking. Before you judge me and say that my mom isn't obligated to take care of me, I will tell you that it isn't about mom taking care of me. It was never about that. I am that one child in the family who nobody really cares about. My parents always claim that they love and treat us all equally, but man, is it obvious that they love me a little bit less than the others. I always thought that maybe I am adopted and that's why they don't care about me that much. Well, I am wrong because I am 100% theirs. It is always about how my other siblings are doing or how mom and dad are suffering, but it is never about me. It was never about me from the beginning. I rarely celebrate even if it is supposed to be my day. My birthdays? They rarely celebrated because mom and dad forgot, or they just threw everything in the house and called it a birthday. High school graduation party? Nope, my parents have already wasted a lot of money for my big brother's college graduation party, so they can't do that, but they will make sure to make it up to me. Do you think that ever happened? I will give you a minute or two. If you guessed no, then congrats, you guessed right. Yay! They shared the wedding expenses of my siblings' wedding, but since my husband came from a good family, they don't have to share wedding expenses. Not my words. I have always been the therapist who listens to my mom and dad's rough day, or the one who needs to help mom because my older siblings have a lot of school work to do, or because my younger siblings are too young to do that kind of work. They always tell me that I am a good daughter, but I am never the one who they brag about to their friends. I did everything in my power to make them proud, but my achievements will always be below my siblings. I have tried to talk to them about how I feel multiple times before, but the only thing I get is a hard scolding about how I was getting spoiled. I hated my life until I got out of that house, but I never had the courage to let go of them, thinking that they would change. Well, my mom just proved me wrong. Mind you that my older sister lives a whole ass ocean away from yo, but mom decided that taking a 10+ hour flight to another continent twice was not hard at all, but all of a sudden, and taking a 4-hour ride to my home was too much. Especially when I am in a place where I don't know anyone except my husband. I am so fucking tired of them putting everyone else above me. So, I will make things right between us until I leave because I don't want to end things on a bad note, and when I get to my new house, I will just cut all contact between us. I don't think that I have the energy to do all of this crap anymore, and besides, I have my lovely husband with me, so I will be alright and build myself a new family where I am truly appreciated and loved for who I am. Note, I am the third out of 5 children. My younger siblings are twins. Comments. Comment 1, NTA. Tell her you can't keep in touch, it is too far away. Comment 2, NTA. Yes, I agree with you. Make nice with your mom while you're visiting this time and minimize contact when you get back to your own home. It could be that your mother wants you to beg and plead. Oh mommy, pretty please, come help me, I need you. But my reaction is F that game playing. Put your energy on your husband and build a new support network where y'all live now. Comment 3. NTA. Put them on a strict information diet. Stay off socials, inform your husband and his family that you want nothing posted on social media. Do not let them know when the baby is born or when you go into labor. Do not answer the phone, respond to email, texts, etc. Put them on a ban list at the hospital if you have to. Gather more evidence of them singling you out, then when asked by others, you give them the full story. Maybe shame will cure them. Update, 3 months later. Hello. First, I would like to thank everyone for their kind advice. I was honestly shocked when I saw all of these messages. I really appreciate it. A lot has happened since my last post. I tried to call my parents but they were blocked and I couldn't reach them, but I was determined to get the closure that the younger version of me wanted. So I called my older brother and I asked him if we could meet up and talk about the situation. He told me that he won't meet up with me after what I've done to our mother, and he berated me saying that I was an ungrateful person and that mom is in a lot of stress and pain because of me. I told him that it wasn't fair for him to just assume that I was the villain and that he couldn't even understand my point of view because they didn't treat him like they treated me my whole life. He knew that they treated me like their personal chef, maid and therapist for years, but they couldn't even give me the love and attention that I wanted for once in my whole damn life. He basically screamed at me through the phone that I was a piece of trash for saying that, and that mom and dad treated us all equally, but I was just a damn narcissist who can't think about anyone but myself. I tried to talk but my emotions got the better of him and I started breaking down on the phone and he hung up on me. I even started asking myself if I was really the narcissist that my family seemed to think of me. But my husband came to the rescue and helped me through all of this, but the doubt that maybe I was in the wrong still lingered in my head. I guess my brother told my parents that I called him because dad called about 2 days after that and asked me to meet up at their house. I was about to say no, but I couldn't because his voice was filled with remorse, so I thought that maybe, just maybe, we could get past the whole thing and I could drop the thought of cutting contact even if my mom doesn't want to help out. After like 3 days of talking to my dad, me and my husband went to their house to talk. I thought that it was going to be me, my husband and my parents talking, but they invited my brother and his wife. As soon as we sat, my dad started talking about how disappointed he was with me and that things shouldn't have led to this. I told him that he was right. Things shouldn't have escalated to where they are now, but I assumed that since mom helped take care of my sister and my brother's wife, she would do the same, but she just favorited everyone else above me, and it was frustrating. I told them about how I felt for the past years, and I told them everything that I said to you guys. But all of them acted like they didn't care, which honestly hurt like hell. I knew at that moment that I didn't mean anything to them, so why was I fighting to be a part of a family that didn't want me? My husband was going to speak, but I told him not to. Everyone gave their opinions about it, basically blaming me, and then Dad asked me if I wanted to say anything to Mom. I told her that I was sorry because I didn't want any type of bad blood between us before I close this chapter and move on with my life, but she didn't say anything back, and Dad said that we needed some time cooling off and setting some boundaries, and I guess that was it between us. In the next 2 weeks we were packing and leaving the state. I didn't tell anyone about where my new house will be. Only once I got there and settled down did I write a long message about everything they did and how I felt, and at the end of the message I told them that I was completely cutting contact with my parents and older brother. I changed my phone number and blocked all of my family from my social media. And you know what? My life has never been this peaceful in a long time. I am happy about everything, and my baby will arrive any day now. It is honestly stressful, but I love it so much. We hired a helper around the house because why not? Now my day consists of sleep, take a walk, eat some more, have back and hip pains, and repeat, which honestly isn't that bad. Thank you for reading comments. Comment 1. Sounds like you finally choose peace over drama. Wishing you all the happiness with your little one. Comment 2. Yup, sometimes family is just a title. You don't owe them anything if they don't treat you with love and respect. Comment 3. Blood doesn't mean loyalty. You gave them every chance, and they showed you exactly who they are. Now you get to build a family that actually deserves you. Wishing you nothing but peace and joy with your little one. I cut off my freeloading sister, but she stole my identity. My parents enabled her, yet I walked away, choosing self-respect over their toxicity. Do you know how some individuals joke about becoming the family bank? For me, it wasn't a joke. It was my life. For 5 years, I'd been my sister Melissa's unofficial treasurer, paying her rent, electricity, groceries, and even the occasional splurge for her daughter Ellie. All while working a blue-collar job where overtime wasn't a bonus but a necessity. Melissa was not always like this. She once had a husband and a sense of stability. But when her rage became too much for him to manage, he walked out, leaving her with a stack of bills and a kid. That was when the family baton of responsibility was passed to me. Our parents, reveling in their retired golden years, made it obvious that they had no intention of intervening. "You're young and capable, John," Mom said to me when I brought it up. "You can handle it." So, I handled it. I tightened my belt, worked additional shifts, and put my own aspirations on hold. All to ensure Melissa and Ellie did not go without. I told myself it was the correct thing to do. Who else was going to help them? But then, a year ago, Melissa landed a nice job. Nothing flashy, but it included a paycheck, benefits, and the opportunity to finally get back on her feet. I decided I'd help out for a little longer until she adjusted. But as the months passed, I observed something troubling. Melissa wasn't battling anymore. At family dinners, she'd nonchalantly mention her most recent shopping trip or the new gizmo she'd purchased for Ellie. At first, I stayed quiet, thinking to myself that she deserved to have some fun after going through so much. But last week, she pushed me too hard. We were at Mom and Dad's house for dinner. Melissa, Ellie, our parents, and Uncle Rob. The supper was the usual commotion, with Ellie refusing to eat her veggies while Mom and Dad spoke about their most recent cruise. Then Melissa dropped a bomb. "I'm thinking about buying this amazing purse," she added, displaying a snap from her phone. "It's only $500, but it's designer." I paused mid-bite to comprehend her remarks. "You're thinking about spending $500 on a purse while I'm still paying your rent?" I inquired, my tone calm but forceful. How did she respond? She laughed. "Oh, don't be so cheap, John." Something inside of me cracked. 5 years of sacrifice, forgoing vacations, nights out, and things I desired, all for her. So I was cheap? I set down my fork, my appetite gone. "Cheap?" I repeated, my tone chilly. "Let's talk about cheap, Melissa. Like how I've been covering your rent while you buy purses." Or how I've sacrificed everything while you pretend you're struggling. You know what? I'm done. The room became silent. Mom and Dad were now fascinated by their mashed potatoes, while Melissa looked at me in bewilderment. What do you mean, done? She inquired, her tone skeptical. I mean no more rent, groceries, or handouts, I added, rising up. You're on your own. Uncle Rob sat back in his chair and blew a low whistle. Way to go, John, he said, clapping my back. You don't owe anyone anything. Melissa spluttered, attempting to formulate an answer, but I didn't wait. I grabbed my jacket and went for the door, pausing only to say, and if you think this is temporary anger, you're wrong. It's time for you to grow up, Melissa. I departed with my heart racing in my chest. As I drove home, relief and rage struggled for control. 5 years as the family bank, and this is how I was treated. Little did I know, the aftermath from that dinner was only the beginning, and what happened next would put me to the test more than I ever imagined. Melissa's stillness was frightening. Days passed, then a week, and I heard nothing from her. No angry texts, no guilt-tripping voicemails, nothing. It seemed too quiet, like the calm before a storm. I kept telling myself I had done the right thing, but the nagging feeling that something was brewing kept me on edge. That something appeared late one night in the shape of a knock on my door. When I opened it, I wasn't expecting to see my parents standing there, their faces a mix of irritation and self-righteous outrage. We need to talk about Melissa, Mom stated without hesitation, entering inside as if invited. Dad followed and closed the door behind him. I crossed my arms and leaned on the kitchen counter. Do we? Because I think I've said everything I need to. She's struggling, John, Dad said, his voice heavy with disappointment. Ellie doesn't deserve to suffer because of your stubbornness. I couldn't help but chuckle, and it wasn't out of amusement. Let me get this straight. You two, who have spent the last 5 years on cruises and at wine tastings, want to lecture me about family responsibility? When exactly did you decide to care? That's not fair, Mom exclaimed, her face flaming. We're retired. You're young and capable. And she's your daughter, I replied, my wrath boiling out. Funny how she's suddenly my responsibility now that you don't feel like dealing with it. The conversation continued in a familiar pattern of shame and blame. Mom's voice rose as she lectured me on family loyalty. Dad groaned deeply, shaking his head as if I were a disappointment. You're being cold, John. Mom eventually said, her tone accusing. This isn't like you. Maybe not, I said, approaching the door and holding it open. But it's how I'm going to be from now on. Thanks for stopping by. They departed muttering, but I felt strangely relieved. For once, I had stood my ground. The relief lasted exactly 2 days. Melissa contacted me out of the blue. I considered not responding, but curiosity got the best of me. What do you want? I inquired, ignoring pleasantries. Her tone was very light. Just wanted to let you know, I'm moving out of the apartment next month. Why? I asked, frowning. Can't afford it without me? Oh, I can afford it, she responded, her tone haughty. I just don't want to. I'm moving back in with Mom and Dad. That hit me like a blow in the stomach. What? They offered, she stated nonchalantly, as if it were no great thing. They said they didn't want Ellie to suffer because of your little tantrum, so I'm putting my stuff in storage and moving into the guest room. Should be cozy. I could not find the words. The thought of Melissa reclining at my parents' house, rent-free and responsibility-free, while they made excuses for her was nearly too much to handle. Oh, and one more thing, she said, her voice full of phony tenderness. You might want to check your credit report, just a heads up. My stomach sank. What the hell does that mean? She laughed. You'll find out. Bye, Johnny. I hung up and instantly entered my credit card account. What I witnessed made my blood run cold. There it was. A new credit card account in my name, with a staggering balance. Thousands of dollars were charged to stores that I had never visited, all of which had opened within the last 6 months. Melissa had taken more than just my money. She had also stolen my identity. My hands shook as I stared at the computer, rage, bewilderment, and betrayal whirling through my chest. Helping her was one thing. Being fooled for a fool was something quite else. It wasn't just about shutting her off anymore. This was wartime. 2 weeks later, I was still dealing with the consequences of discovering Melissa's credit card fraud, hours on the phone with credit card companies and a lawyer. I submitted a police report not out of choice, but because my lawyer advised me to do so. I knew it would worsen things, but Melissa had given me no choice. Then came the shocker. I was at work, trying to concentrate on a project, when my phone vibrated with a text message from Uncle Rob. Did you know your parents took out a loan? Thought you should hear it from me. A chill ran down my spine. Alone? For what? I called Uncle Rob immediately. He did not mince words. They're paying off the rest of Melissa's debt, he stated plainly. She went crying to them after you cut her off, and they decided to bail her out. They took a loan against the house to do it. My jaw clenched. You've got to be kidding me. I wish I was, Rob responded. They didn't want you to find out, but I figured you deserved to know. I hung up, my blood blazing. They had gone over my back, enabling Melissa once more and jeopardizing their own financial stability in the process. Worse, they expected me to remain quiet and pick up the pieces when everything fell apart. That evening, I drove directly to my parents' place. When I walked in, they were sitting in the living room with Melissa, laughing as if everything was perfect. As soon as they saw me, their mood changed. John, Mom said cautiously. What are you doing here? I'm here because I just found out about the loan, I explained, my voice quivering with barely restrained rage. Care to explain? Mom's face turned pale, but Dad stood up, his look hard. We did what we had to do, he explained. Ellie doesn't deserve to suffer because of your stubbornness? And what about you? I questioned, looking at Melissa. What's your excuse this time? Stealing my identity wasn't enough? Melissa crossed her arms, her voice defiant. I did what I had to do, John. You cut me off. What was I supposed to do? You were supposed to grow up, I snapped. But instead, you ran back here and dragged them down with you. I turned to my parents. And you let her. You're willing to jeopardize your own future just to enable her lies and manipulation. Do you even hear yourselves? We're protecting our family, Mom stated forcefully. No, you're enabling her, I responded. And I'm done being a part of it. Don't you dare walk out on this family, Dad shouted as I turned for the door. My heart pounded in my chest as I paused and returned my gaze to all of them. You already walked out on me the moment you decided my sacrifices didn't matter. I've been your scapegoat long enough. From now on, you can clean up your own messes. Melissa smirked. You'll be back, John. You always come back. I met her look with a hard voice. Not this time. I walked out and slammed the door behind me. My phone was filled with angry texts from my parents and Melissa for the rest of the night. I disregarded them all. For the first time in years, I wasn't burdened by their expectations. I wasn't their banker, fixer, or fool anymore. I was free. This wasn't just disobedience, it was emancipation, and I had no intention of turning back. The fallout was immediate. Within hours of leaving my parents' place, the family group chat exploded. Messages from my dad and Melissa covered the screen, each more dramatic than the previous. Mom. You are pulling our family apart, John. Dad. You were raised to be better than this. Melissa. Ellie is heartbroken. You are a selfish coward. I put down my phone, tightened my jaw, and went for a walk. The night was crisp and peaceful, in stark contrast to the pandemonium raging in my mind. I felt raw, angry, sad, and relieved. For years, I'd carried the weight of my family's expectations, and now that I'd let go, I wasn't sure what to do with myself. The next day, I got an unexpected call from Uncle Rob. Heard about what happened, he answered sternly. Good for you, kid. Someone needed to stand up to them. I exhaled a breath that I hadn't realized I was holding. Thanks, Rob. I don't feel like the hero right now. You're not the hero, he stated bluntly. You're just the only one with any sense. His words provided me with a sense of validation. Still, the days that followed were difficult. My parents had stopped phoning, but the silence was not comfortable. I knew they were furious, and I knew it wasn't over. Melissa wasn't as quiet. She resorted to social media, writing vague yet pointed messages. It's sad when the people who are supposed to love you the most are the first to abandon you. And my personal favorite, family is supposed to be forever. Guess not for everyone. The genuine breaking point came a week later, when my folks invited me to supper. Despite my better judgment, I went. Perhaps I still hoped for a chance at reconciliation. When I arrived, the situation was tight. Melissa was already present, sitting at the table with a smug grin. Ellie was nowhere to be found. We need to talk, Dad said, his voice heavy. About how I'm the bad guy? I inquired, sitting down. About how you've handled this, Mom asked, her voice harsh. You didn't have to humiliate Melissa or threaten her with the police. She committed fraud, I stated, my voice rising. What did you expect me to do? Clap and say, great job, sis. You could have handled it privately, Dad retorted. You didn't have to escalate things. Privately? I scoffed. You mean quietly, so no one would see how you've enabled her for years? Melissa finally spoke up, her voice filled with wrath. You're just bitter because I didn't need you anymore. I rose up, my chair grinding loudly on the floor. You've never needed me, Melissa. You've just used me. And now you've dragged them down with you. John, Mom replied, her voice softening. Please, for Ellie's sake. This isn't about Ellie, I interjected. This is about you refusing to let her face the consequences of her actions. And I'm done being a part of it. I fled without looking back. That night, I sat on my couch, rehearsing the confrontation in my mind. The rage, the hurt, and the treachery. Everything was there. But there was something else. A sense of freedom. For the first time in years, I wasn't shouldering their burdens. In the weeks that followed, I immersed myself in my life. I resumed going to the gym, reconnected with friends, and focused on work. Uncle Rob had been correct. This was not about being a hero. Uncle Rob and I had supper one night, and he told me how proud he was of me. You're finally living for yourself, he told me. About damn time. It was not easy. The guilt persisted, especially when Ellie called one evening and asked why I hadn't come around anymore. I promised her that I loved her and would be there for her no matter what, but my determination remained firm. I'd learned a terrible lesson. Family does not entail losing your happiness, limits, or dignity. Sometimes, love entails stepping away. And as the days passed into weeks, I discovered something I hadn't felt in years. Tranquility. In the months that followed, my life changed in ways I never anticipated. Initially, the quiet from my parents and Melissa was deafening. For years, I was their safety net, go-to problem solution, and banker. Now it was just me. The lack of their continuous demands felt unusual, but it also allowed for something I hadn't experienced in a long time: serenity. I began to fill my days with activities that brought me delight. I finally joined a recreational basketball league after putting it off for years due to job and family obligations. I finally took a weekend trip to the mountains, a dream I had put off so many times that it began to feel like a fantasy. Standing by the shore of a peaceful lake, with no one texting me about bills, rent, or guilt-tripping me into solving their problems, I felt something I hadn't felt in years. Freedom. Work became a source of pride once again. Without the shadow of family trouble hanging over me, I poured my energies into a new project at work and received a promotion within 3 months. My coworkers also observed the change. You seem lighter. One of them commented over a team meal. Like you're finally breathing. They were correct. For the first time in years, I could breathe. Uncle Rob, my dependable sounding board, remained a constant presence in my life. He lifted a glass and smiled as he dined on meat. Here's to you, kid, for finally learning how to say no. I chuckled, but his words stayed with me. Saying no had been the most difficult thing I'd ever done, but it was also the most important. Melissa, unsurprisingly, continued to play the victim. According to what I heard, she was still living at my parents' house, relying on them for assistance, and avoiding responsibility. Mom and Dad became increasingly frustrated, but their pride prevented them from acknowledging they had made a mistake. The true surprise came from Ellie. One afternoon, she called me from her mother's phone. Uncle John, she spoke softly. Can I come visit you? Mom says you're mad at us, but I miss you. Hearing her voice made my heart break a little. However, it also gave me hope. Of course, you are welcome to visit, I replied kindly. You're always welcome here. She came over the following weekend, and we spent the day baking cookies, watching movies, and discussing school. She hugged me goodbye and whispered, "Thanks for being my favorite uncle." That moment reminded me why I had battled so hard to establish boundaries. It wasn't just about protecting myself. I wanted to show Ellie what self-respect looked like. The lesson I learned was simple, yet deep. Standing up for oneself is not selfish. It is important. Family does not imply being a doormat. It denotes respect, support, and mutual caring. And if such things are missing, it is acceptable to walk away. The distance from my family was difficult, but it provided me the opportunity to create a life I could be proud of. I wasn't simply surviving anymore. I was thriving. For the first time in years, I felt like I was right where I was supposed to be. One evening, as I stood on my balcony, watching the sunset, I understood something important. I hadn't lost a family. I had regained myself. And that was a trade I would gladly make again. I bought a house, but my family expected me to house my sister's family for free. I refused, cut them off, and I'm moving to London. I, 35F, work as an investment analyst and am pretty successful in my job. Growing up with an older sister, Victoria, 38 degrees Fahrenheit, I realized early on that if I wanted something, I had to work for it myself. From the start, our parents' treatment of us was noticeably different. When Victoria turned 16, she received a nice new Volkswagen Beetle with a large red bow on top. When it was my turn, I got Dad's ancient Honda, which had 150,000 miles and a tendency to break down. Victoria has always been the ideal child in our parents' eyes. She was the beautiful one, the social butterfly, the one who couldn't do anything wrong. She married her husband, Nathan, 39 million, right after graduation, and they quickly began having children. They currently have 3. Charlotte, 8F, Lucas, 5M, and Andrew, 2M. They live in a rental flat, which Victoria frequently complains about. Meanwhile, I have been more fortunate in my own way. My best friend's parents own numerous properties and have been renting me a wonderful one-bedroom apartment at half of the market rate for the last 5 years. They trust me because I've never given them any reason not to. While Victoria had everything handed to her, I learned to be cautious with money. Since I began working, I've been saving diligently by living within my means, cooking at home rather than eating out, and taking public transportation whenever possible. My coworkers frequently mock me for being overly frugal, but I had a plan. College provided another striking evidence of inequity. Victoria attended her ideal school, with our parents covering all expenses, including tuition, lodging and board, and a hefty monthly allowance. Meanwhile, throughout my final year of high school, I applied for every scholarship I could find, staying up late to maintain my perfect GPA, knowing that it was my last chance at higher study. With remote work becoming more widespread at my company, I just need to come into the office for key meetings. A tranquil country cottage seemed ideal. Last week, I finally opened my savings account and examined the data. After years of diligent planning and saving, I had enough to make a down payment on a small home. I was in the middle of looking through real estate listings when my mother called, with her usual impeccable timing. "Don't forget, we're expecting you for dinner on Saturday," she added, her voice carrying a subtle order disguised as a reminder. "Victoria and Nathan are coming with the kids, and please try to be on time for once." I arrived at my parents' suburban home at precisely 5:05 p.m. that Saturday. Their driveway was already full with Victoria's minivan, so I had to park on the street. Inside, there was the usual chaos. Kids running around, my mother fussing over everyone as if it were a state supper rather than our typical family meeting. My father had already retired into his usual recliner with his newspaper, where he would remain until supper was served. The traditional dinner complaints circulated. Nathan complains about his demanding supervisor and difficult project deadlines. Victoria laments their tight flat and the children's constant demands. Dad expressed concerns about the economy and gas prices. Mom frequently adds to the commotion by commenting on everyone's eating habits and portion amounts. During these evenings, I mastered the art of mental escape. I took advantage of the hubbub by checking my phone under the table and scrolling through a lovely small home I had discovered. 2 bedrooms, a large kitchen, and a stunning garden. The pricing was within my budget. The listing images depicted a beautiful wraparound porch, ideal for a set of rocking chairs. The prospect of sitting there with my morning coffee made me happy. "What's so interesting on that phone? You barely touched your food." Mom's piercing voice broke through the background commotion. Her hawk-like eyes never skipped a beat, despite the commotion. I could have made something up about work, but perhaps the warmth of the fantasy still lingering in my head compelled me to be honest. "Actually, I'm looking at houses. I'm thinking about buying one soon." The silence that followed was terrible. You could hear the ice cubes settling in the water cups. Even the children realized something had changed. Charlotte paused in the middle of a conversation about her school performance. Lucas halted, fork halfway to his mouth. Even tiny Andrew stopped slamming his spoon against his high chair. Victoria's head shot up so quickly that I worried she could suffer whiplash. Nathan's incessant rants about his boss ended in mid-sentence. Mom's hand paused in the middle of reaching for the salt shaker. Dad's newspaper descended gently, like a curtain, showing his astonished expression. "Buy a house?" Mom asked, as if she hadn't heard me right. "You?" "Well, yes," I admitted, immediately regretting my candor. The way they all looked at me made me feel like I had announced plans to invade Mars. "I'm just looking at options right now, nothing definite." "What kind of house?" Victoria said, her voice retaining the strangely pointed tone she used when she felt frightened. It was the same tone she used when I received a higher SAT score than she did, just before convincing our parents that I had cheated. "I haven't really decided yet," I answered ambiguously, attempting to change the conversation. But I could sense their minds working, unspoken thoughts nearly palpable in the air. My parents exchanged profound looks, the type they'd honed over decades of marriage. Victoria kept looking at Nathan, who had suddenly become quite interested in his mashed potatoes. The typical supper bustle soon resumed, but something had changed. The talk felt forced, as if players had forgotten their lines and were desperately trying to finish the show. Even the children appeared to pick up on the stress, and their usual loud demeanor subsided. A week later, my phone began to vibrate with Mom's calls, during an important Zoom conference. After her third effort, I called back during my lunch break, expecting an emergency. "Finally," Mom said, her voice practically trembling from joy. "I found the perfect house for you." Martha from church informed her of a listing in her neighborhood. "It's absolutely ideal." I set down my half-eaten lunch, immediately felt a headache forming. "Mom, I haven't even asked for help finding a house." But she was now in full stride and unable to halt. "It has 5 bedrooms. No, 6. The master bedroom is huge, and there are these adorable children's rooms with built-in closets." I blinked. "Oh, and the backyard. There's already a playground installed, can you believe it? And the location is just perfect. Walking distance to St. Mary's Elementary School and the public library." I stroked my temples, trying to remain cool. "Mom, I appreciate you thinking of me, but that's not what I'm looking for at all. I want a small country house, something cozy just for me. I don't need multiple children's rooms or a playground." "Don't be ridiculous," she yelled, her delight quickly turning into frustration. "You can't just think about yourself, you need to plan ahead. This house is perfect. Martha says the owners are motivated to sell quickly." After she hung up, Victoria began sending out an endless stream of postings for large family houses. Each subsequent message delivered another 4 to 6 bedroom house with numerous baths, large yards, and close proximity to schools and parks. By the 20th message, I had stopped checking. It was evident that they weren't listening to what I really wanted. Instead, I contacted Amanda Cha, a realtor with glowing recommendations. During our first encounter, I was struck by how well she listened. "I want something small and cozy," I explained. "A country house, not too far from the city, with good internet for remote work. Maybe a small garden where I could grow herbs and vegetables." When I told her about my pricing range, her eyes brightened up. "I think I might have exactly what you're looking for. It just came on the market yesterday." The house she showed me was ideal, a lovely 2-bedroom cottage located 40 minutes from the city. White siding, dark green shutters, a wraparound porch with room for rocking chairs. Sunlight poured in via huge windows onto an open-plan living room. The kitchen was not large, but it had been redone with butcher block worktops and modern appliances. A wood-burning fireplace dominated the living room wall, and I could envision nice winter days spent reading beside it. Upstairs, there were 2 modest bedrooms and a bathroom with a clawfoot tub, which I fell in love with right away. But the sunroom sealed the deal. There are windows on 3 sides that view a well-kept garden with raised beds and a small greenhouse. I could immediately envision myself spending weekends there, surrounded by greenery and natural light. The owner offered a quick closing discount, and I accepted without hesitation. The following few weeks were a blur of paperwork and preparation. I put down a larger down payment than was required, keeping the monthly payments manageable, using the money I had carefully saved all these years. While my family undoubtedly believed I was being cheap, I was actually building my future. After everything was finalized, I planned to announce the news at the next family dinner. Mom had just started discussing another house. "Barbara next door is selling. She'll give us, you, a good price." "Actually," I interrupted, unable to suppress my joy, despite their past attempts to sway my decision. "I've already bought a house." The hush was absolute. Even Charlotte, who is normally unstoppable, paused in mid-motion. I took a big breath and began detailing my new house, my voice full of enthusiasm despite the mounting tension around the table. "It's this beautiful cottage, about 40 minutes outside the city. 2 bedrooms, the most amazing sunroom, and there's even a small greenhouse in the backyard. The previous owner had these gorgeous raised garden beds." My father's fist hit the table with such power that the water glasses jumped. "Are you out of your mind?" he exclaimed. I had never seen him that angry before. Andrew burst into tears as he heard the startling boom. "How dare you buy a house without consulting us first?" My mother's cheeks had turned an alarming red. "After all those perfect family homes we found? Why would I need to consult you about buying my own house with my own money?" I inquired, feeling as if I had wandered into some strange parallel dimension. "Because we had it all planned out," Mom practically screamed. "Barbara's house would have been perfect, right here in the neighborhood, plenty of room for everyone." "Room for everyone?" I asked slowly, growing confused. "It's just going to be me living there." The hush that ensued was deafening. Mom and Dad exchanged glances as Victoria sat there with an unusually serene demeanor. Nathan was suddenly quite interested in his plate. Actually, Mom explained in a tone that made my blood run cold. The plan was for Victoria, Nathan, and the kids to live there with you. I waited for the punchline. It didn't arrive. Victoria nodded, as if everything was totally normal. We're so cramped in that apartment. Your house would give us all the space we need, and since we wouldn't have to pay rent or utilities, we could finally start saving money. I gazed about at their dead serious expressions. Dad's severe condemnation, Mom's righteous rage, Victoria's entitled expectation, Nathan's awkward avoidance. Years of memories flowed back. Every time, Victoria got what she wanted while I worked twice as hard for half the pay. Every time, my successes were ignored while her slightest achievements were praised. You all just assumed I would buy a house for Victoria's family to live in? Well, of course, Mom threw out her hands, as if I was being intentionally cryptic. That's what family does. This isn't helping? This is expecting me to house 5 people without even asking me. You're being selfish, Victoria shouted, her cool demeanor breaking. The kids have to share rooms? Andrew's crib is in our bedroom. It's not fair to them. You need to cancel this ridiculous purchase immediately, Mom commanded, her voice harsh with the control she had exercised over me for 35 years. Barbara's house is perfect, right in the neighborhood. No. I stood up, scraping my chair against the floor. The word came out stronger than I expected, bearing the weight of decades of pent-up rage. Chaos erupted. Mom jumped up and waved her arms. Dad's voice roared. The children started crying. But we'll be so cramped, Victoria moaned, like if I hadn't said anything. Charlotte has ballet. Lucas has soccer. You're not going to be cramped anywhere because you're not living in my house, I said calmly. None of you are. Ever. Is that clear enough for you? They stared at me as if I had a second head. The entitled shock on their faces was nearly amusing. How can you be so cruel to your own sister? Mom asked, clutching her pearls and her voice shaking with wrath. I grabbed my handbag and walked towards the door, their shouts rising behind me in a cacophony of demands and accusations. I couldn't hear another word. I got in my car and drove home in a haze, their entitled expectations still echoing in my ears. Update 1. The aggressive knocking on my flat door began as I was packing the kitchen. The coffee mug I was wrapped in newspaper slid from my grasp but landed safely on a mound of packing paper. Open this door right now, my father's voice rang through the wood. We know you're in there. I froze, bubble wrap still in my fingers. More thumping ensued. Go away, I yelled back. I'm not discussing this anymore. Don't you dare talk to us like that. Dad's fist caused the door to rattle in its frame. We raised you better than this? My hands trembled as I took up the phone. If you don't leave right now, I'm calling the police, I mean it. I pulled up the keypad and purposefully pushed digits, ensuring that they could hear the beeping. I'm dialing right now. Dad's curse was broken by Mom's sudden intake of air. We're leaving. Mom's voice had become as icy as ice. But this isn't over. You're making a terrible mistake. I slid down against the wall, my heart thumping, after hearing their footsteps disappear down the corridor. An hour later, Victoria sent the first message, which included a photo of Charlotte and Lucas squished together on their shared bunk bed. Look how little space they have, the caption stated. Charlotte can't even have a desk for homework. When I didn't answer, another photo appeared. Andrew's crib squeezed into the corner of Victoria and Nathan's room. He wakes up every time we come to bed. This isn't fair to him. As I continued to ignore her, Victoria's communications became increasingly hostile. They began arriving at all hours. 2 a.m., 4 a.m., and 6 a.m. You always were Dad's least favorite. Mom cries herself to sleep because of you. I hope you're happy all alone in that big house while your nieces and nephews suffer. I blocked her phone number. Then her Facebook. Then her Instagram. But she kept finding new ways to contact me, setting up new accounts, using Nathan's phone, and even inventing false email addresses. The phone calls began to come from different directions. First, there was Aunt Marie. Sweetie, I just heard what's happening with your sister. Surely, you can find it in your heart to help family. Uncle Bob was next. Kid, you need to think about what really matters here. Family comes first. Susan is my mother's dearest friend. Your mother is devastated. How could you do this to your own family? Even my former high school teacher, Mrs. Peterson, whom my mother still saw at church. I always thought you were such a kind student. I'm so disappointed to hear about this situation with your sister. They all sent the same message. I was selfish. heartless, cruel. I should give up my home, my goals, and my independence to help Victoria. None of them seemed to wonder why Victoria's living predicament was my concern. After 2 weeks of incessant pestering, I'd had it. I went to my cell carrier and changed my phone number, giving it solely to my employer and a few trustworthy pals who had not chosen sides in this fiasco. Moving day was blissfully quiet. I chose a moving firm I'd never used before, ensuring that my relatives couldn't track my address using common local services. The movers worked quickly and professionally, and by dusk, I was standing in my new living room, surrounded by boxes and possibilities. That first night at my cottage, I sat on my veranda with a cup of tea, listening to the crickets and watching the stars appear. There's no traffic noise, no sirens. There's no family turmoil. Just peace. I felt something inside me suddenly relax. A tightness I hadn't realized I'd been lugging around for years. I occasionally checked their social media updates. Victoria posts passive-aggressive status messages about family betrayal and selfish siblings. Mom's barely veiled posts about ungrateful children and family obligations. Relatives and family friends made comments, everyone taking sides without understanding the whole tale. But here's the thing. None of it concerns me anymore. Their comments can't reach me in my new refuge. I turned the second bedroom into a home office, positioning my monitors to face the window so I can watch birds visit the feeder I erected. The previous owner's raised garden beds are currently overflowing with herbs and vegetables. My first try at gardening was surprisingly successful. For the first time in my life, I am living fully on my own terms. And it feels really liberated. Update 2. Something unexpected occurred today. Remember the large investment project I've been working on remotely from my new home? It paid out hugely. My manager summoned me to a virtual meeting to inform me that I had not only received a significant bonus, but was also being considered for a director job. My new environment's quiet and focus had enabled me to excel at work in ways I had never believed possible. Without regular family interruptions and emotional exhaustion, I found myself proposing new ideas and taking on leadership roles naturally. This triumph, however, resulted in an interesting development. Victoria's apartment complex was sold to a developer who intends to transform it into luxury condominiums. All tenants received eviction notifications with a 60-day notice to vacate. I learned from family members that Victoria and Nathan were having difficulty finding a new place that fit their budget. The timing could not have been better. My promotion comes with a large salary boost, and I chose to utilize my bonus to make down payment on a lovely holiday home in the mountains. It's essentially an investment, as property values in that neighborhood have skyrocketed. Today, I received a well-phrased email from Nathan, not Victoria, interestingly enough. He described their predicament and asked if I would like to negotiate housing arrangements again. The old me may have felt guilty. Despite everything, I could have considered helping. But I simply gave them some local apartment listings that fit their budget and wished them luck in their quest. Mom took a different approach. She showed up in my workplace building. I suppose she got the address from LinkedIn. With tears in her eyes, she described how she and her father were suffering with their retirement money and had always relied on the family sticking together to help each other in their golden years. I listened politely. Then I stated that my financial advisor had advised against combining family and financial commitments. Her face turned a familiar shade of red. But this time, in the professional setting of my company lobby, she couldn't cause a fuss. The family's social media campaign has taken a unique turn. They are now writing about wealthy people who have lost touch with their roots, as well as stories on toxic individualism in modern society. My aunt even wrote a lengthy Facebook post about how money can transform people, to which hundreds of people responded sympathetically. But they are unaware that my accomplishment has drawn the attention of headhunters. Several famous firms, including one in Europe, have expressed interest in hiring me. The idea of putting an ocean between myself and this drama is getting more enticing. Meanwhile, my new greenhouse is flourishing. I've started growing exotic orchids, which are delicate and require time and attention to detail, similar to creating a job or limits. I'm discovering that the most satisfying experiences in life require time and effort to cultivate. I joined a local gardening group, which has become a fantastic source of camaraderie. These people have no idea about my family issues. They just know me as the woman who brings homegrown herbs to meetings and asks in-depth questions about soil pH. It's refreshing to be judged entirely on who I am, rather than my willingness to give up my life for the sake of others' convenience. Yesterday, I held my first dinner party in my new house. Colleagues, gardening friends, and neighbors gathered at my dining table to share wonderful food and conversation. No one asked anything from me, except possibly the recipe for my herb-crusted salmon. The evening was filled with laughter, intelligent conversation, and mutual respect. All of the things that family gatherings should be but never are. As I watched my visitors have fun on the porch and fireflies dance in the yard beyond, I realized something important. I haven't simply purchased a house. I've built a life. A life that is totally my own, free of the burden of others' expectations and entitlements. Allow them to submit their passive-aggressive messages. Let them discuss family duty and obligation. I'm too busy thriving to worry. Update 3. The last elements of my win fell into place today. Victoria and Nathan were unable to acquire a new apartment. Their credit check found some alarming findings. They're currently temporarily residing with our parents, with all 3 kids squeezed into the guest room. Meanwhile, I received an official offer for the director post in our London office. The remuneration package is outstanding, including a lovely, company-provided flat in Kensington. When I announced my acceptance on LinkedIn, professional congrats flooded in. The contrast between my colleagues' sincere support and my family's harsh silence was startling. The most rewarding moment was when Dad called. His voice lacked the usual authority. He began by casually asking about this London foolishness, but it soon became evident why he was calling. The recent market slump has significantly reduced their retirement savings. They'd reportedly planned to sell their home and move in with Victoria's family, in the house they anticipated me to buy. We always assumed we'd all be together, he added, his voice unusually shaky. Your mother and I aren't getting any younger. I stayed professional and detached, offering a great financial advisor I know. She specializes in retirement planning for seniors. I'll email you her contact information. My family is unaware that I have already made arrangements to manage my mountain home as a premium vacation rental. The predicted income is impressive, more than enough to pay Victoria's whole monthly rent, strangely. But it is not information I intend to convey. Today, I held a farewell garden party for my local friends. The greenhouse was in full flower, with orchids providing a beautiful backdrop. As I watched my visitors have fun, someone commented on how much I've changed since moving here, how I appear more confident and at ease. Later that evening, while packing for London, I discovered an old photo album. There was a photo of teenage Victoria receiving her brand new Volkswagen, and I was standing in the background next to Dad's ancient Honda. The recollection no longer stings. Instead, it makes me realize how far I've come. I am retaining my rustic cottage. It will be my getaway when I visit the United States. The garden will be maintained by a nice retired couple from my gardening group, while the house will remain my sanctuary, free of family strife. Tomorrow I'll board a flight to London. My family does not yet know. They will find out when they see my social media posts from Hyde Park or along the Thames. Victoria will probably write about sisters who desert their families. Mom will share articles on expats who regret abandoning their loved ones. But sitting here in my sunroom one final time before my early morning journey, watching the sunset paint the sky in vibrant colors, I feel nothing but peace. Sometimes the greatest victory isn't winning the battle, but choosing to leave the battlefield entirely. Allow them to deal with their cramped living conditions and financial challenges. I'll be too busy enjoying my new life in London to read their social media updates. Sometimes the best retaliation is simply living well. After my dad's death, my mom remarried and sent me to live with Aunt. She and her husband planned to steal millions, but we exposed them. Okay, Reddit, this will be a lengthy one. 19F, need to get this down since all that has transpired has left my brain spinning. I never imagined I'd be discussing my life narrative here, but here goes. It all started when my father was diagnosed with cancer. I was 14, just entering high school, and I thought my biggest challenge would be mathematics or something. Dad had been tired for a long time, but we assumed it was simply work stress, you know. Then, one typical Tuesday after school, Mom sat me down in our kitchen and informed me that he had stage 4 pancreatic cancer. The following 6 months were like watching a movie about someone else's life. Dad became seriously ill very quickly. He had lost all of his hair and so much weight that his favorite Chicago Bears shirt resembled a tent. He attempted to keep joking and assisted me with my arithmetic assignment even though he could barely sit up. When they took him to the hospital for the final time, he told me, "Don't let your mom's cooking kill you before I get back." That was just like Dad. He was always trying to make me laugh. He died on Thursday. I remember because it was supposed to be pizza night. We'd always order a deep dish on Thursdays. I'd been doing it since I was a child. Instead, I was sitting in a hospital waiting room, under those terrible flickering fluorescent lights, watching my mother scream into her phone while telling our relatives. I expected that to be the worst part of my life. Boy, was I mistaken? Mom completely lost it after Dad died. She resumed dating about 2 months later, claiming she needed to feel alive again or whatever. This is how she met Derek. Rich individual, real estate developer type. He began to visit Mom frequently, bringing her elegant gifts and taking her on weekend getaways. I tried to be happy for her. Dad would not want her to feel sad all the time, right? Then she married Derek. Less than a year after Dad's death. They didn't even tell me about their engagement. I discovered it when she asked me to try on a junior bridesmaid dress she had already purchased. The wedding was held at a luxury country club in Newport Beach. All of Derek's wealthy friends were present, staring at us as if we were some charity case Derek had adopted. I spent most of the reception hiding in the bathroom, trying not to cry. That's when things really shifted. Mom and Derek moved into his massive Newport Beach home, which included a pool and a tennis court. But, guess what? There was no room for me. Mom thought I'd be better at ease living with Dad's sister, Aunt Lisa, in Chicago. Who benefits from greater comfort, Mom? So I was hauled off to Chicago like a parcel no one wanted. Aunt Lisa lives in a large mansion in Lincoln Park with Uncle Marcus and my cousins Michael, 17M, and Rebecca, 18F. We used to be quite close as children. Every summer, they'd come to visit, and we'd spend weeks making up ridiculous games and building blanket forts together. But man, everything changed after I moved in. I was no longer their happy summer cousin. Instead, I was an unwanted addition in their house. They began acting as if I was occupying their space, consuming their food, breathing their precious air, or something. Michael was always knocking over my belongings by accident. Rebecca would make these small comments about how her clothes were too lovely to lend me when I first arrived and didn't have any winter clothing. Aunt Lisa was the worst, however. She made it very plain that I was a burden. She even started charging me rent while I was still in high school. Who actually does that? The most messed up part? Mom just quit calling. Like, fully. She would occasionally send money, not enough to meet Aunt Lisa's rent, but that was all. I tried calling her, but she was always too busy with her new life. Yoga consumes too much of my time. Too busy attending charitable events. She was too preoccupied to talk to her own child. I'd see images on Facebook of her and Derek on vacation in Europe, attending lavish events, and enjoying a life separate from mine. She even stored all of our old family photos, including those with Dad and myself. She claimed they didn't match her new profile look. Like I was just some old furniture that didn't match her new decor. I started having dreams about being back in our old kitchen, where everything was regular. Then I'd wake up crying in this strange bedroom at Aunt Lisa's house, staring at gorgeous wallpaper that probably cost more than my entire wardrobe, feeling as if I'd lost both parents rather than just one. After the first month at Aunt Lisa's, she raised my rent. For property taxes, or whatever. I'm 15, but okay. I guess I need a job. That's when my cousin Rebecca, who is always so helpful, tells me about this 24-hour laundromat that is recruiting in what she refers to as the dodgy section of Chicago. It's this dilapidated structure sandwiched between a closed-down doll store and a super suspicious phone repair company that I'm pretty sure never repairs phones. The owner, this old guy named Jerry, looks at me and says, "You're way too young to work the midnight shift." But when I assured him I could start that night and wouldn't complain about the salary, my age became less of an issue. So my life became this hectic schedule that still makes me anxious just thinking about it. Midnight until 6 a.m. At the laundromat, I had to deal with the strangest folks you can imagine. The worst aspect wasn't the strange customers, it was how frigid the place became. The heating hardly functioned, and Chicago winters are no joke. I'd wear about 3 hoodies simply to get through my shift. They didn't include that in the job description, right? However, one job was insufficient to meet Aunt Lisa's rent, let alone basic necessities such as food and school supplies. So I started working at a petrol station called Quick Stop at 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. This is where my wonderful cousins chose to make my life more enjoyable. See, Quick Stop was just next to their posh private school, where tuition was probably more than I earned in a single year. Michael and his friends felt it was great to come in during my shifts and completely wreck the place. They'd knock over the chip displays I had just organized. Spill their Slurpees, accidentally across the floor. Leave open packs of beef jerky around. Rebecca was worse, however. She was sneakier about it. She'd come in with her cheerleading buddies, and they'd talk about me like I wasn't even there. Oh my God, can you imagine having to work here? Like, I'd literally die? Look at her uniform. It's so polyester. Then they'd snap terrible photos of me attempting to clean up their messes and share them on social media. Things got awful at school as well. I was attending a local public high school, and Rebecca somehow made sure everyone knew about my occupations. People began leaving quarters on my desk for laundry. Someone put a name tag on my locker that read "Washer Girl." You're really imaginative, guys. Thanks. I was essentially sleeping through all of my lessons because, who can stay up when you're working from midnight to 6 a.m.? Trying to do schoolwork at 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. Then we'll start working again at 4 p.m. to 10 p.m. My grades began to decline. Teachers constantly ask if everything is fine at home. I simply explained that I was adjusting to the change. The one positive aspect of the laundromat work was this homeless guy named Pete, who came in most nights. He wasn't like the other odd customers. He showed me how to fix the quarter machine when it became stuck. He showed me which customers were okay to let go when they were a quarter short. One night, Pete looked at me and said, "Kid, you're living life on expert mode right now." Made me giggle for the first time in weeks. Then he vanished when winter struck hard. I still worry about what happened to him. Uncle Marcus owned the building, although I had never seen him there. He delegated the whole responsibility to this property management company. Sometimes I'd see these luxury cars drive by quite slowly late at night. Later, I learned that he would send someone to check on the place. I guess he was watching me more than I realized. Meanwhile, Mom is sending strange texts such as, "Hope you're doing well." But she never answered when I called. Her Instagram feed was full with photos from yacht parties and charity galas. It must be lovely to have so much time for charity when your own child has to work 2 jobs just to get by. Aunt Lisa continually finds reasons to increase the rent. Utilities increased. HOA fees have increased. Your room is prime real estate. Okay, sure. I'm convinced that a converted storage area in the basement, with strange mushrooms growing in the corner, is good Chicago real estate. I began hiding cash in an old teddy bear that Dad had given me before his death. I had this great concept that after I had enough money, I'd be able to get my own house. But whenever I got near to a reasonable amount, something would come up. School fees. My old winter boots went apart. That time Michael accidentally backed into my car, and I had to pay for the repairs. But what's the ultimate straw? One day, I returned home after my gas station shift to find my room completely ripped apart. The bear had been ripped open. Stuffing is everywhere. And guess what? All of my savings? Gone. Rebecca claimed she was merely cleaning and had no idea about the money. Yes, right. That following week, Aunt Lisa comes down to my basement room and informs me that the rent is going up again. Not just a bit. We're talking double. He mentioned that property values in the area are increasing. I did the math and discovered that even with 2 incomes, I couldn't afford it anymore. But here's the thing. I had been attending classes at a nearby community college. Nothing extravagant, just the basics, trying to get ahead while still in high school. The counselor there indicated I may possibly acquire financial aid if I took more classes. That meant I needed to make a decision: keep paying Aunt Lisa's outrageous rent or try to obtain an education. So, I chose education. I had no clear plan. All I knew was that I couldn't stay there any longer. I packed whatever could fit into my Toyota. The automobile had strange rust patches all over it, and the heat only worked if you kicked the dashboard in just the right place, but it was mine. The first night sleeping in the car was actually rather peaceful. We parked behind the laundromat. I used my work keys to sneak in and use the restroom. I had this whole setup. I reclined the driver's seat all the way back, used my work backpack as a pillow, and stacked like 5 blankets borrowed from the lost and found box. I thought to myself, this isn't too bad. Then winter struck. Real Chicago winter. The kind where your spit freezes before it reaches the ground. My car's battery began to die as a result of the cold, so I couldn't even run the heat. But what's the hardest part? It wasn't only the cold or the lack of sleep. It was attempting to appear normal at school. Try explaining to your chemistry teacher why your homework is wrinkled and smelling like laundry detergent. Or why do you keep wearing the same 3 outfits? The school counselor kept attempting to speak with me, but what was I going to say? Oh yeah, I live in my car, but don't worry, it's parked in a really nice alley. Then, my loving cousin Michael decided to play detective. I guess Dad became suspicious about why I wasn't around the house anymore. They followed me one night after my laundry shift. What about the next day? His TikTok had an entire video series called, My Homeless Cousin, a documentary. They recorded everything. My windows are frost-covered. I tried to study utilizing the light from the laundromat sign. I was caught changing clothes in the backseat once. The videos quickly became popular among their wealthy peers. People began blaring their horns and hurling things at my car as they drove past the laundromat at night. The cops also began to show up more frequently. Every few nights, there was a knock at my window. Can't sleep here, miss? So I would drive around until they departed, then return. I spent several evenings traveling in circles, watching my gas gauge drop and hoping I'd have enough to get to work the next day. But you know what's weird? I began noticing a black SUV parked across the street some nights. Always at a different location. But it's always there. Tinted windows. The engine is going. First thought? Cops are a creep? However, they never disturbed me. Just sitting there. As if they were watching. The temperature dipped to -5 degrees Fahrenheit one night. The kind of cold that irritates your eyes. My automobile would not start. The phone was dead. What about the laundromat? Closed for repair. I thought, well, this is it. This is how I die. They'll discover me frozen, just like the rodents in the alleyway. I wrapped myself in every article of clothing I owned and tried to think positive things. That's when I heard a knock on my window. I looked up. And there's Uncle Marcus, standing in the snow, as if it's perfectly natural to be out at 2 a.m. in Arctic temperatures. He just says, I think we need to talk. So how did it turn out? The black SUV was his. He had been watching me through the laundromat security cameras for weeks. Sending folks to check on me. He said he wanted to see what I was capable of. Who does this? What kind of messed up test is this? But really, at that point, I was too cold to care about his unusual teaching methods. So there I was, literally turning into a human popsicle in my car, and Uncle Marcus was just standing there in his fancy wool coat, staring at me through the window. I think he's going to lecture me or call the cops. Instead, he explains, my office has better heating. As if this is a completely regular circumstance. His workplace was a small space above the laundromat that I'd never been in before. Turns out, he had this entire private space up there, a desk, a miniature refrigerator, a coffee maker, even a small bathroom. While I'm defrosting my fingers around this cup of really wonderful coffee, he just sits there staring at me, as if he's trying to solve a mystery. Finally, he says, you know, your dad and I used to sleep in a car too. What? I nearly dropped my coffee. See, I'd always thought of Uncle Marcus as this crazy rich real estate tycoon who wore suits that cost more than my car. But then he starts telling me a story I didn't know. Apparently, he and my father grew up extremely poor. Examples include, their mom worked 3 jobs and they still couldn't afford rent most months, akin to being impoverished. Uncle Marcus pulls out his phone and shows me an old photograph of 2 emaciated kids sitting in a vehicle, eating beans straight from the can. That's your dad on the left, he says. And, yes, the same silly smile I recalled, but on a much younger face. I'm sitting there trying to digest the narrative as he tells it to me. How did they get from homeless teenagers to? Okay, how about this? This is when he informs me about the laundromat. The original owner used to let them hang out inside on particularly chilly evenings. They'd help him fix machinery, clean up, and do whatever else was necessary. When the owner became ill, he offered to sell them the place. Dad had recently begun college on a scholarship, but Uncle Marcus had been working construction and saving every dime. So the owner sold it to him for almost nothing. It was his first property. Then he begins taking out all these old documents from his desk. Property deeds, contracts, business plans, all with my father's notes in the margin. When your dad got sick, Uncle Marcus adds, he made me promise 2 things. First, I'll be on the lookout for you. Second, make sure you know how to look after yourself. Then he gives me this look and says, gotta say, you're doing better at the second part than I expected. I'm sitting there, trying not to cry, and failing miserably, to be honest, when he drops the big bombshell. It seems he now owns about half of the block around the laundromat. Apartment building, stores, even that dodgy phone repair shop, and he's been watching me through security cameras the entire time. He sent his goons in the SUV to keep an eye on me. You work 2 jobs without complaining, he said. Keep your grades up. Found ways to survive that most people wouldn't think of. Even kept that laundromat running better than the manager I hired. He truly smiled as he spoke that last part. Jerry told me you fixed the quarter machine. Took my maintenance guy 3 tries to figure that out. That's when he takes out the key. He says it's for the apartment above his office. I had no idea this studio apartment existed. It's yours, he says. There will be no rent as long as I continue to work at the laundromat and maintain good grades. I wanted to decline. It felt too much like charity or something. But he shut it down quickly. This isn't charity. This is an investment, he informed me. You've got your father's brains and your own kind of determination. I'm investing in that. Then he shows me the entire file he's kept. Copies of my school records. Work reports from Jerry, even screenshots of those horrible TikTok Michael and Rebecca created. They thought they were shaming you, he claims. All I saw was someone who refused to break. It's strange, you know? All this time, I believed he was simply a cold rich guy who didn't care and allowed his wife to treat me badly. So how did it turn out? He was putting me to the test. Yes, it was a bad way to go about it, but I sort of grasp it now. He wanted to know if I had what my father had, that quality that keeps you going when everything is against you. Before I left his office that night, he mentioned something else concerning Dad. Told me about their last discussion when Dad was in the hospital. Dad made him pledge not to just give me everything, saying I needed to learn to be strong on my own first. But Uncle Marcus added, he also said to know when enough was enough. And kid, you've more than proved yourself. That night, I slept in a proper bed for the first time in months. The apartment was basic, with only one room, a kitchenette, and a bathroom. But it was warm. Clean. Safe. But what happened the morning after Uncle Marcus gave me the apartment? I awoke to find my phone flooded with texts from Aunt Lisa. It turned out that Michael had driven past the laundromat on his way to school and noticed me heading down from the upper flat. He took photos, of course he did. Aunt Lisa arrives at the laundromat during my shift. Wearing fancy gym clothing and looking like she's going to explode. Starts yelling about how I'm attempting to kidnap her spouse. How I've been seducing him, or something. Yeah, Aunt Lisa, I completely captivated him by being homeless and fixing washing machines. Super sexy? The customers were all gazing, and one old lady who comes in every Wednesday to wash her cat's bedding began filming the entire event on her phone. Aunt Lisa is saying all these insane things about how she always knew I was trouble, and how I'm exactly like my mother, taking advantage of wealthy men. I'm just standing there with a mop in my hand, wearing my filthy work uniform, thinking, is this really happening right now? Then Jerry emerges from the back room and tells Aunt Lisa she must leave before he calls the cops. She departs, but not before warning me, this isn't over. That night, I heard Lisa and Uncle Marcus having a tremendous fight upstairs in his office. Their words were muted, but I could hear Aunt Lisa yelling about that girl and how dare you. I felt embarrassed, as if I had ruined their marriage or something. Aunt Lisa later revealed that she had spent the night at a friend's place. When I saw Uncle Marcus the next morning, he had heavy circles under his eyes and gave me a lethargic nod. But the strange thing is that my mother suddenly called me for the first time in months, acting concerned. Honey, I am hearing some unsettling things, as if she had any reason to be frightened after abandoning me. I'm sure the rumors were provided to her by someone, most likely Rebecca. Then she and Derek show up at my flat unexpectedly. Mom is dressed in one of her latest luxury dresses, and her gaze sweeps around my small studio apartment. Oh honey, she begins, but the tone is more calculated than concerned. This is quaint. Derek waits near the door, as if he's worried poverty may spread. What are you doing here? I inquired without giving them a seat. There's nowhere to sit, unless they want to join me on my unmade bed. Mom starts pacing my small space. We've been hearing things about you and your Uncle Marcus. The way she says it makes my stomach churn. What about Uncle Marcus? Come on, honey, she attempts a sly smile. I know what you're doing, it's clever, really. I would have never thought of it at your age. What exactly did you think about? Getting close to Marcus in this way, working in his business and portraying the unfortunate abandoned niece. I'm sure he promised you a lot. The revelation struck me like a smack. Do you believe I am attempting to get his money? Well, don't you live here, work at that laundromat, and spend so much time with him? It is evident what you are doing. I laughed, but it came out rough. Who finds it obvious? Who is the woman who sent me to Chicago and then forgot about me? That is not fair. No, you know what is unfair? You disappeared when Dad died. You married Derek and then, 10 months later, sent me to Aunt Lisa as if I were old furniture that didn't match your new decor. I was grieving, she adds, but she is staring at her nice watch, not at me. You were upgrading, I shouted back. Trading up for a more glamorous life with your real estate husband and charity galas. And now what? You're concerned I'll acquire any of Uncle Marcus' money before you do? Derek takes a step forward, followed by all of the false authority. Listen up, young woman. Your mother and I are concerned about your welfare. What about my welfare? The laugh returns, this time uglier. Where was this concern when Aunt Lisa charged me $15 for rent? When was I working 2 jobs and sleeping in my car? Mom waved her hand dismissively. Don't be theatrical. Lisa would never review my hospital records from when I developed bronchitis while sleeping in that automobile. Check your pay stubs from the gas station and laundromat. Check out the rent receipts Lisa insisted me keep. Oh, wait, you can't. You were too busy uploading photographs from your yacht parties to take my calls. That's ancient history, Mom replies, but she's fidgeting with her wedding ring, Dad's wedding ring, which she enhanced with larger diamonds. We're here to help right now. Derek has a friend who operates a fantastic boarding school in Switzerland. Now you want to help? My voice raises. Or did you just find out Uncle Marcus is educating me about the business, and you're concerned I'll learn something and take a piece of what you think is yours? Mom's expression changes, then hardens. She abandons the concerned mother persona altogether. Marcus was your father's brother. Anything he owns should go to me, his wife. I am correct in calling her an ex-wife, who remarried less than a year after his passing. I deserve, she begins, but I interrupt. What do you deserve? Dad contributed to the success of this business. He and Uncle Marcus started with nothing, but you are busy preparing charity galas with Derek. I'm learning how to repair washing machines, organize books, and genuinely assist people, just like Dad. Your father was a teacher, she spits out. He toyed with Marcus' business as if it were a pastime. Get out. I point at the door. Return to your ideal life with your wonderful hubby. Go organize another charity gala. Go archive some more family images because they don't suit your style. Simply go out of my apartment. Derek tries once more. Now, look here. No, you see here. I'm astonished at how steady my voice is now. I understand exactly why you're both here. When you heard I was working with Uncle Marcus, you became concerned that I may actually earn something you believe should be yours. But here's the thing, I am not you. I am not here for anyone's money. I am here because Uncle Marcus gave me a chance after you threw me away. Mom's face turns red. How dare you? How dare I? How can you come here and appear to be concerned about my well-being when all you care about is your financial account? I approach the door and open it. By the way, Mom, that pantsuit makes you appear desperate. They leave. Mom muttered something about ingratitude, and Derek is already on his phone. I shut the door and slide down against it, shaking. I can hear Mom's voice through the thin walls. I told you it would happen. That tiny gold digger is going to try and take everything. So after the whole drama with Mom and Derek showing up, things went strangely quiet for about a week. I was at work one night when Michael rushed into the laundromat. He appeared afraid. It turns out he was using Aunt Lisa's iPad. A note appeared from someone stored as D, simply saying, "Everything's ready for next week, Lisa baby, we're finally going to be free." Michael, being the nosy youngster that he is, read the messages. Aunt Lisa probably never logged out of her accounts on that iPad. Derek was the D you were looking for. As in my stepfather Derek. As in my mother's husband Derek. They had been texting for months. Michael discovered all of these emails, which detailed their plans to steal money from Uncle Marcus's business and flee together. They had been planning it for about a year. Every time Aunt Lisa hiked my rent, the money went directly into a hidden account. Michael showed up since he wasn't sure what to do. For the first time in his life, the youngster who had mocked me for being poor realized his mother was about to steal everything and abandon him. I called Uncle Marcus. To be honest, part of me wanted to let everything blow up after how they treated me. It would have been some good karma. Uncle Marcus came down to the laundromat right away. Michael was still shivering as he showed Uncle Marcus all of the messages. I have never seen Uncle Marcus appear so blank. His face simply shut down. He placed some calls. It turns out his lawyer had been suspicious of some business accounts for quite some time. The numbers didn't add up, but Aunt Lisa handled all of the paperwork. Uncle Marcus trusted her completely, so no one looked too closely. The lawyer reviewed every account and transaction. Know how much they intended to steal? $4.3 million. They had already transferred about $1 million to offshore accounts. Remember how Aunt Lisa used to moan about property taxes and utility bills? She was also stealing that money. But what about the real blow? Some of the money came from Michael and Rebecca's college savings. Their own mother was robbing their future so they could run away with my stepfather. Uncle Marcus had an entire team of lawyers and accountants come in. They discovered all of the false businesses Aunt Lisa had put up. She'd issue checks to these companies for maintenance or supplies, but the money would simply go into other secret accounts. Aunt Lisa remained very normal during the entire ordeal. She is still posting selfies from her workout on Instagram. She is still running her PTA meetings. Still pretending to be the perfect mother. Derek was the same. He took my mother to charity events, bought her costly gifts, and played the loyal spouse. The lawyers told us we needed to wait and gather more evidence before addressing them. But Rebecca also found everything on the iPad. She arrived at my flat one night, crying, with mascara all over her face, and asked if she could stay. For the first time in her life, she lacked a proper sleeping environment. It was strange having her there. This girl, who had mocked me for being homeless, was now almost destitute herself. She couldn't bear living in the same house with Aunt Lisa after learning everything. She slept on my tiny futon, used my cheap shampoo, dressed in Target clothing, and apologized repeatedly for how she treated me. But, honestly, seeing her realize that money does not make you a better person was enough. Uncle Marcus had his IT team monitor all accounts and transactions. The objective was to catch them shortly before they attempted to flee. But Aunt Lisa must have realized something was wrong because she began shifting money more quickly. Michael celebrated his 18th birthday the next morning. Aunt Lisa had arranged a great event at their house, including hiring a DJ, catering, and even setting up some mini golf in the backyard. She was particularly polite to everyone, most likely because she felt it was her last weekend there. Uncle Marcus determined it was the time to confront them, have all of the proof ready, and gather everyone in one location. Rebecca asked if we should alert my mother first, but Uncle Marcus answered no. We needed to observe her honest reaction to determine whether she was involved. The morning of Michael's birthday celebration seemed strange. Like, really odd. Aunt Lisa is racing around preparing centerpieces and inspecting the caterer while genuinely planning to leave with my stepfather the next day. Rebecca and I were helping set up, both aware that everything was about to blow but attempting to appear normal. Michael looked like he was about to throw up every time his mother touched him. Uncle Marcus had a great plan. His lawyer would show up suddenly at the party with some crucial paperwork. They'd gather everyone in the living room and then dispose of all the evidence. The FBI was really waiting nearby. Yes, actual FBI agents, because it appears that stealing millions from respectable businesses while trying to flee the nation is their thing. My mother arrived early, all thrilled about the party. She hadn't spoken to me since the whole Switzerland boarding school situation, but she pretended everything was fine. Derek entered behind her, holding a large wrapped package. Later, I discovered it was a high-end gaming system. I guess he was trying to purchase Michael's silence or something. The celebration began at 2 p.m., with all of Michael's wealthy classmates arriving in BMWs and Mercedes that their parents had purchased for them. The DJ is playing music, people are swimming in the pool, everything appears to be normal, but Rebecca, Michael and I are just watching Aunt Lisa and Derek, who are constantly checking their phones and whispering to each other. Around 4 p.m., the lawyer arrived. He's clutching a hefty folder and appears quite serious. Aunt Lisa's expression when she saw him, "I wish I had a photo." She knew. They assembled everybody in the living room. Some of Michael's friends tried to stay, but Uncle Marcus said, "Family only," in this voice, so they left quickly. My mother was fussing about interrupting the party, but then the lawyer began putting out documents on the coffee table. Bank statements, emails, transfer records, and images of Aunt Lisa and Derek taken by a private investigator. The room became quieter as he placed each piece of paper down. Then he played a clip of Aunt Lisa and Derek discussing their intentions, laughing at how foolish everyone was for not noticing. My mother stopped breathing when she heard Derek's voice. She just froze. Aunt Lisa tried to claim the recording was a forgery, but Uncle Marcus took out her iPad, the one Michael discovered the messages on, and began reading their texts aloud. "You guys," the shouting that followed. Mom flung herself at Derek and began pounding him with her pocketbook, which, by the way, contained 1,000,000 metal objects. Aunt Lisa attempted to flee, but the FBI agents were already on the scene. Some agent lady just says, "Lisa Anderson, you're being arrested for wire fraud and embezzlement." They brought both of them away in handcuffs. Aunt Lisa kept yelling about how we had ruined her life, but what was the worst part? Neither of them looked at their children. "So, your son's 18th birthday celebration has turned into a crime scene, and you can't even apologize." Mom had a complete meltdown, with full-blown hysteria. Derek had also been using her money. She had signed a series of papers without reading them because she trusted him, she claimed, and he had practically stolen everything she had left from her father's life insurance. The following few weeks were chaotic. The FBI inquiry uncovered even more evidence. Aunt Lisa and Derek had planned this for more than a year. They had phony passports, offshore money, and an entire secret existence ready to go. They had taken from almost everyone. The business, the kids' education funds, and even charity money from those fancy parties they were always attending. Uncle Marcus was watching how everyone handled the situation. Rebecca and Michael basically moved into my small apartment. We had this whole system. Michael slept on the futon, Rebecca shared my bed, and we all used the same bathroom, which was strange. They both landed jobs at the laundromat. Rebecca is actually very good with clients when she isn't nasty to them, while Michael has a talent for maintaining machines. He discovered an issue with the industrial dryer that even the repairmen couldn't remedy. Mom went to rehab, not for drugs, but to deal with everything. She'd been so intent on looking great and living the perfect rich life that she'd overlooked all of Derek's warning signs. Uncle Marcus really stepped up. He has been teaching us all about the business. He says he hopes we, me, Rebecca, and Michael, can run it together someday. We all have various strengths. I'm brilliant with mathematics, like my father was, Rebecca's amazing with people when she tries, and Michael's a bizarre genius with machines. Last week, we all went to Dad's grave for the first time together. Uncle Marcus told us more about himself, including how he helped establish this entire business while still teaching because he believed in helping people. Aunt Lisa and Derek are now in jail. It turns out that taking millions and planning to depart the country is criminal. They're both attempting to blame each other, which would be amusing if it weren't so tragic. Michael and Rebecca are still struggling with it. Imagine discovering that your mother cared more about running away with someone else's spouse than she did about you. But do you know what's weird? We are actually better now. Like all of us. Mom is dealing with her concerns rather than hiding behind fancy sunglasses. Rebecca and Michael experienced what it's like to genuinely work for something. I discovered that accepting help from others is not always a sign of weakness. Sometimes I look around at my life and can't believe how different it is from a year before. For example, I am currently sitting in the laundry office, which is also my workplace. I handle the place, and it dawns on me. Despite losing my family, I am doing a lot better now. TLDR, discovered aunt and stepfather were secret lovers who planned to take millions and flee. They were arrested at a birthday party. Mom had a breakdown and went to treatment. Cousins learned humility through laundry, and we all became a true family. Also, Dad was playing 4D chess from beyond the grave. My brother threw a party to spite me the night before my wedding. My parents chose it over mine, and I filed for a restraining order. My brother threw a birthday party the night before my wedding to spite me. My parents preferred his party over my wedding and arrived at my house at 4 a.m. to harass me. I was married a few days ago, but my family did not attend. My brother, Gerald, was not even invited because we don't like one another. That was not surprising, but my parents did not turn up. Gerald decided at the last minute to have a wild 28th birthday party the night before my wedding. He sent out invites to all of our family approximately a week before my wedding, simply to be petty and nasty because he had not been invited. It was quite a big thing. He had booked up a large facility and gone all out with entertainment, hiring a live band and a stand-up comedian to play. I'm only assuming that the catering and drink arrangements were in line with the performance. Although the performers are not particularly well known on a national scale, they are well known on the local circuit. Aside from that, I think everything would have been fairly pricey. My cousin showed me the invitation, and for a few minutes, I was concerned that people would attend his celebration rather than our wedding. Even if they chose to do so, there was little we could do about it. My wife and I both understood that individuals would have to choose. They couldn't attend the party the night before and then attend our wedding the next day because the party was in the city and we were getting married in a hotel about 8 hours away. We did not want to say anything to our guests. We wanted to allow everyone to make their own decisions, and we were extremely fortunate that everyone opted to attend the wedding. In retrospect, it is silly that we were concerned in the first place, because a wedding is far more important than a birthday. My parents were the only ones who did not attend, which was surprising. Even though we had a quarrel a few days before our wedding, I didn't anticipate them to attend his party and then skip the ceremony. The fight had occurred on a call 4 days before the wedding. After that, I became quite busy with last-minute preparations and was unable to call them. They didn't bother either, but I never imagined they'd skip it, especially since the wedding is such an important occasion in someone's life, especially when it's your own child. The fight was also about the wedding and birthday. After my cousin showed me the invitation, I called my parents to explain what was going on. I assumed they were going to be on my side, explaining things to my brother and convincing him to back down. Instead, they began telling me that it was my responsibility for not inviting him to the wedding and putting our previous disagreements aside. They stated he had every right to be petty, and I couldn't expect them to step in and try to defuse the issue because we weren't kids anymore, and they didn't believe it would be appropriate. I have to admit that I was unhappy with my parents. They were attempting to rationalize my brother's actions, despite the fact that they were extremely cruel and petty. So I confronted them about it, and we got into a brief fight. I ultimately hung up, telling them that if they truly believed he was doing the right thing by causing difficulty for us, they could just go to his party and skip the wedding. I did not speak with them again until the morning of the wedding day. While we were driving to the hotel, I kept attempting to phone them because they were meant to accompany us, but the car we had sent for them had returned empty. The driver told us that he had repeatedly tried to ring the doorbell and call our parents, but no one responded. I tried to call them all day, but nobody responded. At night, I was expected to concede that they might not make it the following day. Even in the morning, right before the ceremony, I expected them to arrive and attempted to call them, but they did not. I had to marry without them. I would have been upset, but I was about to marry the love of my life, so these things didn't affect me at the time. After the wedding, I decided not to bother contacting them again because they had already missed the most important milestone of my life. Later that evening, at the reception, they finally called me back. I responded out of curiosity, wanting to know what they had to say to me. When I picked up, they informed me that because I had instructed them not to attend the wedding, they had done so. Despite this, they still wanted to congratulate me. I assumed they were talking about the wedding, but they later explained that they were congratulating me not only on the wedding, but also on getting my way. Obviously, no one in the family had bothered to attend the celebration. My parents were unhappy with me, and they made it apparent over the phone that they thought I had said something to everyone else to turn them against my brother. Not only had they skipped the party, but they had also chastised and reprimanded him about his actions via messages and phone calls. Even though his friends and coworkers had attended the party, it had been a huge waste because he had expected a large number of people to show up, but just a few did. Gerald is now not only dissatisfied with the rest of the family, but he has also wasted a significant amount of money. This is meant to be my responsibility because my parents truly believed that I had said something to turn the rest of the family against him, despite the fact that any normal human being would have behaved similarly. So, while I was on the phone with them, I excused myself from reception and went out to discuss the problem. I told them how sad I was that they had opted to forgo my wedding over such trivial matters. Furthermore, they were ridiculing me right now for getting my way, despite the fact that the rest of the family had already made their decision. I was upset with them, so I ripped into them. They told me they didn't care what I thought since they knew I was envious and insecure about my brother, which is why I'm acting this way. That was the final straw, so I hung up, blocked them, and vowed to spend the rest of the evening without thinking about these guys. I did not want them to ruin the happiest day of my life. It's been a few days since the wedding, so I finally decided to issue a statement on what transpired. Many people were perplexed as to why my parents had chosen to forego the wedding, as they couldn't believe they had chosen Gerald's celebration instead. I decided to send an email to all of the guests, outlining the entire situation in detail, including the party my brother had hosted, the disagreement my parents had with me, and what I had told them about not showing up to the wedding. Then I told them about the quarrel we had over the phone during reception. Basically, I laid everything out and didn't spare any details. Everyone is now cutting them off, and they are once again blaming me for it, claiming that I go out of my way to cause drama and be spiteful toward my family. That could be the case, so I talked about why my parents did not attend my wedding in detail, turning the rest of the family against them. Okay, since many of you have asked why my brother and I don't get along, there's no particular reason. Even as children, we were not particularly close, but as we grew older, we became increasingly distant. He always seemed to be a little jealous of me, constantly mimicking me and whatnot, which used to irritate me. So we began fighting, and by the time we started high school, we truly disliked each other. Then I left for college and stayed for employment. I would go home on occasion, but he was really unpleasant even then. He would make disparaging remarks about my appearance, my salary, and other topics. It used to really irritate me, so I just started ignoring him because I knew I'd have to see him and it didn't seem worth it to reply to him and provoke fights. After a while, he recognized that I was not going to give him the satisfaction of genuinely reacting to him, so we simply stopped talking to each other. Even at family events, we would ignore each other. So there wasn't a specific occurrence that prompted us to behave in this manner. It was simply a series of bad occurrences throughout the years that led to our disagreement. I did not invite him to the wedding. I do not believe I did anything wrong. I don't think he expected to be invited, and if he did, it would have been an unfair expectation. My parents also know and understand why I stopped speaking to him. They attempted to patch things up at first, but it failed, so they eventually gave up. But they had never been more supportive of him or me, as far as I could tell. They had always tried to be fair to both of us, so I was astonished by their latest attitude. It felt like they were being unnecessarily biased against him, which had never happened before. Anyway, that's what it is. I can't help myself now. Update number 1. First and foremost, thank you to everyone who left comments. It felt good to be told that this is not my fault and that I had nothing to apologize for. All of the emails from my parents that had been flooding my inbox since I revealed the truth to the rest of the family have been deleted, and I've blocked them everywhere. They can continue to try to create new accounts and contact me, but I will not retract what I wrote about them. Besides, it's not like I made it up and began spewing irritating fake information about them. I just told the truth in the email I wrote to everyone in the family. I didn't even discuss my personal feelings. I simply stated the facts as it stood. People were free to make their own decisions about what they wanted to do, and if others want to cut them off because of their behavior, that's not my problem. On the day of the wedding, they had already accused me of attempting to turn the rest of the family against Gerald, so I merely did what they had accused me of. Why should I be punished without even committing the crime? Anyway, what I did was far less underhanded and pathetic than what they are attempting to do right now. My cousins and a few other relatives have sent me the email they sent in response to mine, which stated that I have always been jealous and insecure of Gerald. Even though my brother threw a last-minute birthday celebration, it was only because I went out of my way to make him feel horrible, and he retaliated as a result. They made up this incident that never happened, in which, apparently, a couple of weeks after I had sent out the invitations to the rest of the family, I called Gerald up to mock him about the fact that I was inviting the rest of the family but not him because he was simply not good enough to make the cut. Apparently, I had informed Gerald that my in-laws come from a wealthy family, and I didn't want them to know that my brother was a lazy freelancer. Obviously, I had not done anything like that, and anyone who knows me well would not believe it. The rest of the family doesn't believe anything they say about me, so I haven't bothered to clarify anything. I know they are lying, and nobody will believe them. But I have to say, it's really funny that they had to lie to make me look like the bad guy in order to clean up their own image and reputation. They aren't even helping themselves. Instead, they are making matters worse. I honestly don't understand why they are so determined to make me the bad person right now, especially because I don't believe I've done anything to harm them aside from one email. It does not make sense to me. However, it is apparent that they are desperate and are currently grabbing at straws. For me, this is the end of a chapter, and I'm going to focus on my time as a newlywed because it won't come back. I can handle the drama afterward. I'm very sure this isn't the end of the story, and they'll do their best to drag it out like chewing gum. Update number 2. So, it's been a week since my last post, and Gerald and my parents decided to include me in a conference call yesterday evening. They were both phoning from burner phones, so I don't have their phone numbers preserved, but it's easy to figure out who it was. I was at home with my wife, so I decided to answer the phone and chat with them because I wanted to mess with them, which I did. As soon as I picked up, I pretended not to hear them for around 5 minutes. Even though they had called to yell at me, they had to ensure that they were audible. So, before saying anything, they had to coordinate with me, which was extremely amusing. Anyway, they eventually got down to business and began telling me that the rest of the family was not on good terms with them. Everyone was angry with their actions and believed my parents and Gerald were exceedingly petty. So they expect me to do something about it. I had no idea what they had in mind, so I inquired what they wanted me to do. Even though I had no intention of consenting to it, I chose to play along for fun. But, of course, they assumed I was honest, so they informed me that a lot of things had been said by all of us, and that at the end of the day, the only thing that was hurting us was our family's reputation as a group. I found it interesting that they were saying so because, in my opinion, the entire incident had done nothing to damage my image or reputation. People still liked me, but I guess they simply wanted me to believe that this was about me or my image so that I would be more willing to do whatever they asked of me. Anyway, they told me that they wanted to send out another email stating that we had decided to work things out amongst ourselves and forgive each other since, after all, we are still family. They stated that the only way we would be able to repair our reputation right now was because they did not want to become a laughingstock and subject of gossip for the rest of the family as a result of this incident. But, unfortunately for them, I could see straight through them. I realized they were simply pretending to forgive each other because they knew no one believed any of the lies they had been spreading about me. If they didn't want to be excluded from the rest of the family, they had to pretend that everything was okay between us again and that I had forgiven them, so that the rest of the family would do the same. But I'd had enough of messing around by then, so I politely declined and stated unequivocally that it was they who wanted to repair their reputation, not me. I had no reason to pretend I had forgiven them. I also had a major issue with how they framed it, implying that we had forgiven each other, because I don't believe they are in a position to forgive me. I've done nothing wrong. I may have shouted some things in the heat of the moment, but it was ultimately their decision to miss my wedding and attend the birthday celebration. Whatever happens after that is the result of their actions. Besides, after all the lies they've been spreading about me, I don't want to appear weak and pretend to have forgiven them. So I made it apparent to them that I did not agree with what they had proposed. If they wanted to remain angry with me and continue to disseminate lies about me in the hopes that someone would believe them and they would be able to justify everything, they were free to do so. My parents, as well as Gerald, were furious as a result. He told me that it was entirely my fault, That if I had just done the decent thing instead of being petty and not asking him to such an important family occasion, none of this would have occurred. It was evident that he felt slighted, and for a second, I felt horrible. But then, it was my wedding. I'm not obligated to invite everyone, especially when I don't even get along with them, and they know it. So I told Gerald that, and we had a disagreement over the phone. He called me selfish, and I told him he was silly to expect me to invite him, especially because we had had little communication aside from family occasions for the preceding few years. If he wanted me to be good to him, perhaps he should have treated me the same way. But, as far as I can recall, he has never invited me to any of the celebrations he has given, even though they have never been as important as a wedding or even an engagement. But it is beside the point. The point is, he's never been friendly to me, so I don't understand why he expected to be invited to the wedding. Anyway, after a while, everything were too loud and obnoxious. Gerald was shrieking, and my parents were ranting about something else, and I couldn't understand anything, so I just hung up and blocked their burner phone numbers as well. I would not say I completely regret it. I had some fun with them, but I have to say that if they contact me again, I doubt I'll answer. As enjoyable as it was at the beginning, it became quite taxing by the end, and I'm finished. Update number 3. Hello, well, it has been a few days since my last update. Today, around 4 a.m., my phone began to buzz. When I checked, it was an unknown number, so I didn't answer because I was confident it was Gerald or one of my parents phoning. And, again, it was 4 a.m., so I had no intention of getting into anything with them at that time, especially since I had to get to work in a few hours. But then, around half an hour after I didn't answer the phone, we started hearing people shouting outside our house and someone ringing the doorbell non-stop while also hammering on the door. Obviously, it was really unsettling, and it took us a few moments to grasp what was happening. But soon enough, my wife and I realized that it was my parents and Gerald outside, and we were hearing their voices. They demanded that we open up and that they needed to speak with us because what I was doing was wrecking their life. They stated that they had been completely cut off from the rest of the family, and it was all my fault. Now, if it had been any other time of day, I would have been somewhat annoyed, but it was 4 a.m., so I was enraged. Because, aside from that, they simply cannot harass people in this manner, and they were actually quite loud. I was sure the neighbor could hear them as well, but they didn't say anything about it afterward and were kind enough to pretend nothing occurred. I knew they had been startled by the ruckus outside, which made me feel pretty embarrassed. Anyway, when I heard them outside, I didn't think twice. I simply called the cops on them because I'd had enough. My wife and I sat in bed and let kids scream themselves hoarse while we waited for the cops to arrive. We were both really outraged about whatever was going on, so we didn't get out of bed until the cops arrived. Then we detailed the full issue and got them removed from our land. But by then, we'd lost a lot of sleep and had to miss work today. It's incredibly annoying that we lost an entire day of work due to them and their illogical actions. I can't understand why they were so upset about people not speaking to them at that time. But, anyhow, we've had enough, and if anything else happens, I believe we'll need to file for a restraining order. Moving or replacing numbers is a major undertaking that may be costly or time-consuming, hence this is not currently possible. But that's the least we can do, even though they haven't explicitly threatened us. So I'm not sure if we have grounds for it or not. We'll talk to a lawyer, so let's see how things proceed. Update number 4. Hello. So it has been a few days since the incident in the morning. Following that, we spoke with a lawyer the same evening. My parents and Gerald were just trespassing and raising a commotion. They hadn't actually hurt anyone or anything, so they were let off with a warning for disorderly behavior and no charges were filed. But, fortunately for us, we still have grounds for a restraining order based on their behavior, so we chose to pursue it. Today, they received the notice. In a few days, we'll go to court and put an end to this, which will be a big relief. I've already spoken to several members of my family about this. I don't see the sense in disguising their behavior any longer, and it's genuinely startling that they're acting this way, especially given that they never cared much for the rest of the family previously. True, my parents were never particularly close to the rest of the family, and Gerald rarely speaks to anyone in the family. So having people cut them off shouldn't have had such a negative impact on them. I am guessing this isn't about the family cutting them off at all. This is simply about them trying to cause trouble for me. Well, I hope they're happy now because they've only screwed things up for themselves. Now they must face the repercussions of their deeds. It's incredibly terrible that so much turmoil could have been avoided if my parents and brother had simply behaved normally. But they had to go out of their way to embarrass themselves, and hence me. It's not like I like the procedure. It's actually quite unfortunate that I'll have to obtain a restraining order against my own family, but the circumstances demand for it, and I don't have any other option. This is honestly quite pathetic. Update number 5. Hey, it's been 4 weeks since my previous update. My family's 2-year restraining order was recently obtained, which is excellent. The rest of the family is in solidarity with us, as they have been since the beginning. But, as of now, they have not only blocked them out of their life and stopped inviting them to events, but they have also begun to communicate with me more frequently, ensuring that I am doing well and checking in on me. Even though I feel absolutely good most of the time, there are times when I feel really sad about what has happened to my family. I appreciate that the rest of the family is making up for it. I wouldn't trade having this kind of support system for anything in the world. I feel very connected to everyone, especially my cousins, because they have been at the forefront of everything, assisting me emotionally and practically, such as putting me in touch with an excellent lawyer. So, I'm extremely appreciative for everything everyone has done for me, and I believe it's time for me to start a new chapter. My wife and I are departing for our honeymoon in a few days, and I'm hoping that when we return, things will have changed. I know a change of environment is precisely what we need, therefore I am looking forward to the next week and a half. I'm going to ignore everything to do with my parents and Gerald. I am determined not to let them ruin this for me in the same way that they tried to wreck my wedding. Anyway, thank you to everyone who stayed up to date on what was going on with me and for all of the support in the comments. See you.